of the Raritan Township Zoning Board of Adjustment to order. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act have been satisfied by the placing of the notice of this meeting on the bulletin board at the municipal building, filing same with the township clerk, and transmitting same to the Hunterdon County Democrat, the Courier News, the Star Ledger, and the Trenton Times. Roll call, Taylor.
Chairman, Mr. Roger Aarons.
Here.
Vice Chairwoman, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer. Here. Mr. Steve Farcio.
Here.
Mr. Randy Block.
Here.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Here.
Mr. Russell Adamji.
Here.
Board professionals, Township Planner, Mr. Jeffrey Vaccarello.
Here.
Board Attorney, Mr. John Drill.
Here.
Landscape Architect, Mr. John Morgan Thomas.
Here.
Traffic Consultant, Mr. Jay Troutman.
Here.
Board Planner, Ms. Jessica Caldwell. Here. Board Engineer, Mr. Mark Katriniak. I believe he's just running late. He did confirm he would be here. And Board Stenographer, Ms. Jackie Clapp.
Here.
Okay. No comments, no announcements tonight, but we do have the appointment of a chair pro tem. And I'm going to ask for volunteers to replace our prior chair pro tem, who has resigned because he has now been appointed one of our township committeemen. So someone like to volunteer?
I volunteer Cynthia.
Cynthia's already the vice chair.
Vice chair.
I'm going to make a nomination. If it's agreeable, I'd like to nominate Rasul Damji.
I second it. I'll third it, even though we can't do that.
Rasul, would you be willing to serve? as
Sure.
Pro tem, thank you. Do we need to take a vote on that, Mr. Drill?
Yep.
Chairman, Mr. Roger Aarons.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Steve Farcio.
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Yes.
Do I
Welcome
say
aboard.
Rasul as well? I don't say Rasul, do I?
Yeah.
Oh, Mr. Russell Damji.
Yes. Russell, thank you very much for doing that. I appreciate it. I should have forewarned you, but
Yeah, it was a surprise.
just think of it this way,
Right.
it's only half a year. All right, we have no distribution in correspondence. We do have minutes, however, and I have read through the April 6th minutes. I found that they were clean. Thank you, Jackie. Could I have a motion to accept those if no one else has any other corrections?
I'll make a motion.
I second it. Roll call?
Chairman, Mr. Roger Aarons.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block.
Yes.
Mr. Steve Farcio.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem, Mr. Russell Damji.
Yes.
Okay, our second set of minutes is from April the 20th. I've read through those. They look clean to me. If anyone has any corrections, please let me know. If not, I'll entertain a motion. So moved.
I'll
Okay.
second.
Thank you.
Chairman, Mr. Roger Aarons.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block.
Yes.
Mr. Steve Farcio.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem, Mr. Russell Damji.
Yes. Okay, our third set of minutes is from May the 4th, and in reading through them, I did see one correction on page 2, under 6, number 6, board members and council, down in the, under item C, in the second line of the second paragraph, there's a correction on, it says Grunberg Esquire in regards to Celine Basha with an A. The A is missing. That is the only thing I noticed on these minutes. Could I have a motion if no one else has any corrections?
I'll move.
I'll second it. Thank you. Roll call.
Chairman, Mr. Roger Aarons.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer.
I abstain.
Mr. Randy Block.
Yes.
Mr. Steve Farcio.
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero.
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem, Mr. Russell Damji.
Yes. Okay. Now, resolutions. We have resolution number 2023-01 Karen Batista, Block 16, Lot 6. The address is 18 Bartles Corner Road. It's BOA case 16-2019. And I've read through these, and Mr. Drill thought that he was going to get away with a perfect
I did.
resolution, but I did notice something. And on page 5, down about the 12th or 13th line, it reads, relief requested, period, the board finds. The word finds, FINDS, is missing. Other than that, the resolution is perfect from what I can see. Does anyone else have any other corrections?
Where are you? Can you
Yes,
do that again?
page 5.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13th line starts relief requested, period. The board finds.
Yes, finds. The word finds is missing. Finds that. Kelly, you see where that goes? Excellent.
Anyone
Say
else?
that I left that word out on purpose to see if
You
you
were
find
test-
it,
you
but
were-
that'd be a lie.
You were testing me, Mr. Drill. I know that.
Yeah.
If anyone else has any corrections, if not, can I have a motion?
I can't.
So moved.
I'll second.
Thank you. Roll call?
Chairman, Mr. Roger Aaron's,
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Farcio,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem, Ms. Rasul Damchi.
Yes. Okay, our first application for the night is BOA case 23-2021. The applicants are Thomas Pooley and Conchetta Stewart. The location is Block 85, Lot 15. The address 71 Old York Road. The application is a request for non-conforming use certificate for accessory apartment. And I have a letter from the attorney of record for that particular application, and it reads,
Who's the attorney of record?
yes, it is Erica Edwards.
And what's the date on the letter?
The date of the letter is May 18th,
Okay.
and it reads, Ray, application of Thomas Pooley and Conchetta Stewart, 71 Old York Road, Block 85, Lot 15. Dear Ms. Vaughn, consistent with our phone discussion of today, the above referenced applicants respectfully request an adjournment of the continuation of their hearing to the zoning board's August 3rd, 2023 meeting with no further notice required. The applicants hereby grant the board an extension of time through September 30, 2023, within which to take action on this application. Thank you for your kind attention to this correspondence. Very truly yours, Erica Edwards. Okay. So,
So you might want to ask Jeff about this because this feels like it keeps on getting requested to be adjourned. Jeff, can you grab a microphone and when was this filed? Is this filed on their own? Is there a pending zoning violation? How many times have they requested to have the thing extended, et cetera, et cetera? What's the status?
Yeah, this application was a result of a notice of violation sent in the summer of 2019.
oh,
And it took about a year in order for the application to be filed. And then from there, there was confusion as to what was supposed to be submitted, and I believe it's been adjourned. This will be the third time.
I have it written on the red wall if you want to check.
Yeah, can we check that, Redwell?
And I do have copies of every correspondence she sent.
Does she say in this letter when she wants it adjourned to?
yes, August the 3rd.
Mhm. I offered her July and she says she couldn't do any dates that month.
This would be the third.
My suggestion is to give this thing a preemptory date in August. That if the board is going to grant the adjournment, which quite frankly, they're not here. So your hands are a little bit tied, but direct the secretary make a motion, a vote, direct the secretary to tell them, okay, this is the last time, this is a preemptory date. You either show up on August 3rd or your application is going to be dismissed. Now, according to Jeff, the reason they're seeking this non-conforming use certificate is because if they don't get it, then they're going to need a D1 use variance. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so
Okay.
that's my suggestion.
I think that is a very fine suggestion. I will make that motion. Would someone care to second it?
So the motion is going to be to agree to adjourn it to August 3, but it's a preemptory date. In the letter that's going to go to them, it's going to be, you're here on August 3 to proceed. If you don't proceed on August 3, we're going to dismiss it that night.
I will second that.
Roll call?
Chairman, Mr. Roger Aaron's.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Ms. Cynthia Schaefer,
Yes.
Mr. Steve Farcio,
Yes.
Mr. Randy Block,
Yes.
Mr. Jim Ferrero,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pro Tem, Mr. Russell Adamchi.
Yes. Very good. Okay, before we get to our second application for the night, I'm looking up, I'm seeing we're almost at 7:15. We have two long applications tonight. So what I'd like to do is this, and we've done this as part of our regular business. I'd like to give an hour and a half to our next application, and then an hour and a half to the third application. Should we finish the second application, not finish the first, we'll come back to the first application and continue. So our second case is BOA case number 21-2022. The applicant is the Confident Canine LLC, the location Block 9, Lot 5.04, the address 344 Highway 31. The application is for D variance for a proposed dog kennel business.
Yeah.
Yep.
Good evening. All set?
Yes, just the ground rules, informal. Our stenographer is on Zoom. The acoustics in the room are awful. So get to about 3 inches from the mic, or pull the mic closer to you, and then we'll pick you up and she'll pick you up.
Also, our stenographers are recording everything, so please speak very distinctly and slowly.
Okay.
Enunciate and slow, right.
Excellent. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, board professionals. My name is Robert McNally. I represent the applicant, the Confident Canine LLC. The Confident Canine is excited to present this application to the Township of Raritan Zoning Board of Adjustment. The application relates to the property located at 344 New Jersey Highway Route 31 and known as Block 9, Lot 5.04 in the township. The owners of the property are Roger C. Johansson and Carl Johansson. The applicant is under contract with the owners to purchase the property, which purchase is contingent upon the board's granting of the relief requested in the application. The property is located within the township's major industrial I-2 district. The application proposes to develop the property for use as a dog kennel business, which would include the following services: daycare, grooming, lessons, training, and overnight boarding. The applicant currently operates the same business in the township right now at 299 South Main Street and is looking to relocate to a newly constructed facility. Due to increased demand, the business needs to expand from its current location, and more importantly, the current location has experienced significant flooding that has endangered the safety of the animals. Section 291-123.d.6 of the Township's Land Development Regulations permits animal hospitals and kennels as a conditional use. This conditional use is further regulated by Section 296-151.d of the ordinances, which requires that animal hospitals and kennels are permitted as conditional uses if, one, such use is located on property with a minimum size of 10 acres, two, Structures utilized as housing and exercise areas for the animals must be at least 300 feet from any residences and adjacent or abutting residential lots, or 300 feet from any required side, front, or rear yard setback lines of adjacent or abutting lots when those lots are vacant. 3, the minimum front and side yards shall be at least 50 feet each, except if abutting a residence or a residential zone, in which case the board may require additional setbacks to provide adequate buffers and to protect adjacent uses from nuisance characteristics. And finally, the maximum height of any building housing such uses shall be 2.5 stories or 35 feet. The property does not measure at least 10 acres in size, and therefore that condition is not met, and the approval of a variance pursuant to NJSA 40:50D-70D is required. The applicant also requests approval of the following variances. A C variance from section 296-131 in reference to Schedule 1 for the location of the dumpster pad. Footnote 5 regulates that accessory structures cannot be in front of the primary structure. A C variance from section 296-131 in reference to Schedule 1 for the location of the stormwater management system and retaining wall within the side yard setback area. A C variance from section 296-142 for encroaching into the preservation of natural features buffer may be required if the drainage ditch located on the property is found to contain water at least 6 months out of the year. In such instance, a variance is required for any proposed structure located within 100 feet of the ditch and disturbance within 75 feet of the ditch. In addition, any variances or design waivers raised in the reports of the board's professionals will be addressed through testimony by the applicant's professionals. In support of the application, we have 4 witnesses to present to the board. First, Charlene Montpaleo, who is the managing member of the Confident Canine LLC. Second, Keith Chambers of Chambers Architecture, who is our architect. Third, Ian Hill of Van Cleef Engineering, our engineer. And finally, James Kyle of Kyle McManus, our planner.
Yeah, before, I want to swear everyone in, then the first thing I want to do is I want to focus on which variances are required. I know you went through the list, but Jessica Caldwell's report raises a couple other D3 variances, and I just want to figure out, I think I know why she has them listed, but I just want to get that all settled. But let's get everyone who the applicant's attorney mentioned as testifying up to the applicant's table or up to that microphone. And the board experts participating in this application are everyone at the table, plus Jessica, who's on Zoom, and John Thomas, who's on Zoom. Is that correct? Okay, so
Correct.
anyone else that I'm missing? Okay, so can everybody raise their right hand who is a potential witness? And everyone, I'm going to ask everyone, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're going to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? And start over here.
Yes.
I do.
Jessica?
I do.
John?
I do.
Okay, now let's have each person state their name slowly, spell their last name, give their relationship to the applicant or the board as the case may be. Let's get that all listed, and we can mark them down as being sworn, and then we can start with the procedural matters of the variances. So in the same order that you just said I do, can you give us your name and spell your last name?
Yes, my name is Charlene Montpalao. Last name is Mompalao.
And I assume you're the applicant's what?
You're the managing member.
Managing member.
Okay, applicant's managing member. And Charlene with an S or a C?
With an S, and it's an EEN at the end.
Okay, then spell your first.
SHARLEEN.
Okay, next.
Keith Chambers, Chambers Architecture.
Okay?
I could not even hear that.
You gotta get that microphone.
Keith Chambers, Chambers.
And are you an RA?
I'm an AIA.
Okay, you're an AIA. You're the applicant's architectural expert, correct?
That's correct.
Next.
James Kyle, KYLE, with Kyle McManus Associates in Hopewell, New Jersey, professional planner.
A PP and an AICP?
Correct.
You're the applicant's planning expert.
That is correct.
Ian Hill, HILL, Van Cleef Engineering, Lebanon, 08833. I'm the applicant's site engineer.
And you're a PE.
I am a PE.
Jay Troutman, PE, McDonough and Ray Associates, traffic consultant to the zoning board.
Mark Katriniak, PE.
Mark Katriniak,
PE Forever Engineering. Board engineer.
Jeff Vaccarella, Township Planner.
Now, so let me get caught up for a second. Okay, Jessica,
Jessica Caldwell, CALDWELL, board planning expert.
and just to not the across the T, since Jessica's the board planning expert in this application, you're the township planner in this application. Okay.
That's correct.
John Thomas, THOMAS, Board Landscape Architectural Expert,
You're an LLA.
LLA. Thank you.
Okay, now, Jessica, you heard Mr. McNally go over the variances, and he says that there's the one D3 variance is from ordinance section 296-151, D as in David 1, which has a minimum lot size requirement of 10 acres in the proposed lot on which the dog kennel will be located is 5.02 acres. In your report on page 7, you list 3 other D3 variances. Now, you first say that in accordance with ordinance section 296-151 D2, structures housing animals and exercise areas for animals shall be at least 300 feet from any residences and adjacent or abutting lots, or 300 feet from any required front, side, or rear yard setback lines of adjacent or abutting lots when these lots are vacant. You then say the property in question is not adjacent to any residential or vacant property. So it would appear that you're saying that ordinance section 296-151 D2 does not apply, but then you list 3 variances. And so explain, because it's one of 2 things. Either there's a typo somewhere, or what you're saying is there's a section in the general conditional use section, which the board interpreted in the Wawa case. Jeff, help me. What the general section is, I believe, 296-150. And 150A says that the use shall be a conditional use and conform to all the conditions applicable to the use. And then 296-150B says it has to comply with all design standards. And going back to 150A, it also says all applicable regulations and standards governing the zone which it's permitted. So the board said in the Wawa case that basically if you needed a C variance, it was automatically a D3 variance. So what are you saying in the memo?
Well, in this, I agree with that. We do apply that, but in this section where I called out the 300 feet, it is a little confusing. But the way that it reads, it says, structures housing animals and exercise areas for animals shall be at least 300 feet from any residences and adjacent or abutting lots, or 300 feet from any required front yard, side or rear yard lines of adjacent or abutting lots when these lots are vacant. So what gets confusing is because the next line says there's no vacant or residential properties, but it basically says any abutting lots need the 300 feet setback. I mean, that's the way we read the language. So out of an abundance of caution, we called out the 3 setback variances that would be required under that D3 for the
I
front
see. So
yard.
you're saying, okay, the way you're reading the ordinance, the conditional use requirement number 2 in 296-151D2, the requirement is that structures housing animals and exercise areas for animals shall be at least 300 feet from any adjacent or abutting lot, period. It doesn't matter if it's residential, vacant. That's what you're saying?
Yeah, that's the way we read it, unless, the board disagrees with that. It does say any abutting lots or any abutting lots. So that's how we read it. So that's why we called out those
This
variances.
is not a notice issue. I just want to.
No problem.
No.
Are dotted, T's are crossed, that we know what relief, you know what relief you need. So, Jeff, do you agree? Jessica and I seem to be in agreement on this. And Jim Kyle, your planning expert, might not be in agreement. And I think we just pick him out of order just to bring him up to the table just to hear from him. And you've been sworn, and you can why don't you fully qualify him now? Put it this way. I normally don't do this. Have you been qualified by this board in other applications?
A few times.
Many times.
How many times do you think?
Many.
15, 20 times, maybe.
3
We
times a
accept
year.
him.
The board accept him as an expert?
We accept him,
And
absolutely.
importantly, my license is valid,
Right.
so.
Okay, so what's your take on this?
So when I read that section, that D3, it reads, minimum front and side yards shall be at least 50 feet each, except if abutting a residence or a residential zone. Then the planning board may require, I'm sorry, we're looking at 2.
Yeah, we're looking at two.
I'm sorry. Structures housing animals and exercise areas for animals shall be at least 300 feet from any residences and adjacent or abutting lots, or 300 feet from any required front, side, or rear yard setback lines of adjacent or abutting lots when these lots are vacant.
Yeah, and here, what Jessica and I are seeing is, let's just say this is not the best worded ordinance language in the world.
I agree.
But if you focus on structures housing animals and exercise areas for animals shall be at least 300 feet from, let's ignore any residence, any adjacent or abutting lots. If we just read it that way, the ordinance requires 300 feet from any adjacent or abutting lots. Then there's 300 feet from any required front, side, or rear yard setback lines of adjacent or abutting lots when those lots are vacant. The those is the issue. Is it those lots that abut the front, side, or rear yard setback lines, or those lots, meaning all of them, those and the adjacent or abutting lots that are subject to the 300 feet?
That's a tough one.
That's why we're asking you.
Yeah, no, I mean, I almost see it as all of it is qualified by when these lots are vacant. But this is tough to interpret. Yep.
I think that it applies to all lots.
The middle part and the when those lots are vacant, all of them or just that's the front, side, or rear yard setback?
I think it applies.
Oh, so you think that they only need one D3 variance? Jessica, Jeff thinks they only need one D3 variance for now. Jim thinks they only need one D3 variance. I am open to be persuaded. After hearing Jeff and Jim, what do you think?
From the, just saying from the side yard and not from the front yard then?
No, saying that the 300-foot requirement applies, but only when you measure it to whatever you're measuring, adjacent or abutting lots or front, side, or rear yard setbacks, but only if those abut a lot when those lots are vacant. Not when they have a residence on it, although that doesn't make total sense. Why would you want 300 feet from a vacant lot and not 300 feet from a lot with a structure on it?
Yeah, that's what I didn't really understand. I mean, it seemed to say or any abutting lot, so that's. I'm
Well, put
not
it this
sure
way.
that that's the intent, but
Yeah, so
that's what I read, so.
usually, when there's an issue like this, all the board experts are on the same page. We are all over the board. You guys are the judges. We only give the advice, and based on our advice, we're crazy. It's all over. So if you have any questions, what do you guys think? Before we start the case, we need to have a determination. Are we going off Jessica's report on which D3 variances are needed or not? And again, notice is not an issue, so don't get nervous about that.
I'm looking for clarification first before,
Okay, from who?
from you.
I am always.
Let me ask the
conservative,
question, right?
Conservative me, when I read the ordinance, I would say it's not crystal clear. If it's not crystal clear, then what is reasonable, what makes sense? Why would there be a 300-foot limitation only for a vacant lot and not for a lot that has a structure
Bingo.
on it?
Exactly.
I would tend to agree with Jessica.
Yeah, but the problem is what the,
Microphone,
it's not working?
well, loud.
Okay. The problem with that is the language is the language. So
Language is what?
the language is the language. I mean, it's not saying what you guys are saying. That's the problem.
Well,
So-
that's the question. The question is, when I read it, when I read the very end, adjacent or abutting lots, when those lots are vacant, I read that as only those lots directly in front of that part of the sentence, the front, side, or rear yard setback lines. I don't read that as applying to the first part of the sentence, 300 feet from any adjacent or abutting lots,
Why wouldn't you?
because there's no comma.
Okay, but logically, okay, you want, if there's a residence, you want it 300 feet from the residence. And if it's vacant, you also want it 300 feet because that lot could be then developed,
Right.
which
That's-
would make it
That's
fit.
how I'm reading the sentence.
Right.
It's missing some commas. If the sentence had commas, it would make it a lot easier, but there's not one comma in the sentence.
So to me, it has to be 300
If
feet.
Roger was proofreading this ordinance,
Yeah, but
darn straight, there could be a bunch of added commas.
am I correct that the applicant is saying they need 1D variance
Oh,
and
yeah, no, listen, anything the board says, they're gonna apply for, because they want. to-
no, understood, but what Jessica is saying is that they need 3.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, what Jessica's saying is they need four.
Right.
Okay, everyone agrees that they need the
Yeah,
one for
correct,
lot size.
correct.
What Jessica's saying they need, well, they need an additional D3 variance from the 300-foot requirement in 3 different locations. That's what she's saying.
Okay, John, the first C variance relates to front yard setback. There's nothing that can be done about that. There is no vacant lot there.
Correct.
We
Listen,
have,
we're not talking about whether or not to grant them. We're
correct.
just
No,
trying
no,
to
I'm not
line
talking
up-
about granting.
Right.
I'm talking about the 2 side yards. Those are the ones at issue. And let's ask again, what is abutting that lot? If I remember right, it's High Tran on one side and
Yeah.
it's
Stop and Shop.
Stop and Shop on the other.
Actually, NJDOT.
Well,
NJDOT owns a vacant lot.
Next
next to Stop and Shop,
on which side? On the
Right.
south side?
North
between-
side,
north side.
The north side?
adjacent to our lot.
Right.
but again, Roger,
Yes.
we're not talking about the merits of whether you're going to grant them. We're just talking about.
No,
what
I
they
realize that.
need.
But what we're talking about is lots that are unimproved, correct? Vacant lots.
Right.
There's only one.
The conservative approach
Agreed.
is to go with what Jessica says. That's the conservative approach.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. And the issue is, I think why she's saying there are 3 variances is because of the or.
Yes.
Okay. No, I don't think
Okay.
that's an unreasonable
Okay, well,
interpretation.
that saves a lot of
And,
time.
Well,
and
look,
we wouldn't be discussing this if it was a 10-acre lot, because 300 feet makes sense from a 10-acre lot.
agreed.
Right, that's correct.
So
Right, that goes.
the
to my-
mindset is different, yeah.
Okay. All right, so the applicant agree, can you consult with the attorney for the applicant on that?
I think we're.
Okay. so-
We've consulted and we agree.
All right, so they agree that the relief that Jessica says in her report is what's required and they've applied for. All right, so sorry for the little down the side street, but now go ahead.
Right, so we're good with the 3 additional variances that are in her report. We're clear on that?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. The approval of the application will be a better zoning alternative to that which is permitted by the ordinance and will provide benefits to the community as a whole. We look forward to sharing this vision with the board and providing the requisite evidence and testimony to enable approval of the project. Tonight, we intend first to have Ms. Montpalau discuss her current location, her operations, and her ideas for the new property. Mr. Chambers will then testify next to discuss the plans and elevations of the new project and signs so that the board can get a feel for what the project will look like. Mr. Hill has been working with your engineer to resolve some issues raised in his reports. So Mr. Hill and Mr. Kyle, albeit what he's testified so far, will testify at the next meeting. So at this time, unless the board has any questions, I'd like to call my first witness.
You're the first person who's ever acknowledged up front that you weren't going to finish in an hour and a half. That should get you unbelievable credibility.
Any questions? Thank you. Why don't you proceed?
Who's first witness?
Charlie.
Okay.
And everyone, I believe, has a packet of exhibits.
Yes.
Okay. Taylor's going to be kind enough to also put it on the screens, and I'll let you know when we get to each.
And do you have hard copies of those exhibits also to hand out? Yeah,
Correct.
great. Great. You can start her up while Taylor's giving those things
Okay.
out.
All right, would you please state your name and address for the board?
My name is Charlene Montpalau. My residence is 481 Lock Street in Phillipsburg, New Jersey.
And the name of your business is the Confident K9 LLC, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you are the managing member?
Yes.
Okay, would you give, excuse me, would you give the board an idea about your business, please?
Yes, I own a canine facility. We do daycare, boarding, training, and grooming there currently. I can elaborate on each one. The way it works at the facility now is I've been a trainer for 20 years, and the past 4 years is when I started my business in Raritan Township. When somebody comes in that wants to use our services, we do a 4-hour evaluation on the dog. We can only take dogs right now that get along with other dogs. Once we have established their play style and if they're comfortable staying at the Confident Canine, then they can be permitted to come and use
You
our
have to speak a
services.
little, I'm sorry, you're gonna have to speak a little slower.
Oh, sorry, I do talk fast. Once the dogs are established in their play group, we do rotation style daycare. So they play in the group that's suitable for them. And then we'll rest them 20 minutes and then they're back out to play. So what that does is keep a very controlled play environment. Okay, so that's the daycare. We also evaluate our boarding. So what we have now are crates and suites. A crate is just a small suitable area for a dog to stay in. A suite is usually larger, 4x4, 4x6. If they are comfortable in our kennel area, then they can also board overnight. We also do grooming at the facility. Our grooming is typically baths and nail trims. Usually the customers that we have now that, participate in the grooming also. And we also do positive training at the facility also. So we have a few group classes that go on every week. We also do private lessons. We do some more complex behavioral issues with some of the dogs. We do work with Animal Alliance also. We do host I volunteer my time to host a dog at the Confident Canine. They board with us, they do daycare, and they do training. We've successfully rehomed 4 of these dogs. I also train their foster dogs as a volunteer also. So we've had a lot of success with that also. Another thing that we do at the Confident Canine is my employees that I have now, if they're interested in becoming a trainer, they can do a mentorship with the Confident Canine, which means they need to obtain 350 hours in order to become a dog trainer and pass a test with the Certified Pet Dog Trainers Association. Currently we have half our employees that are in the program, and we have graduated already 1 of them.
Taylor, can you put up exhibit 1?
Okay, so these exhibits that were handed out, there are cover sheets, say exhibit 1 through exhibit 7. So we're going to mark all these. Exhibit 1 is going to be A1, exhibit 2 is going to be A2, et cetera, all the way through to A7. And mark the actual exhibit, not the cover sheet, and with today's date.
Take a look at the screen and describe what you see there.
So this is the front end of the Confident Canine. This is the entrance into the lobby.
That's the existing facility, correct?
Yes.
And where is the facility located?
299 South Main Street, Flemington.
And how many years have you been at that site?
4 years.
And at this site, what surrounds you? Are there businesses? Are there homes?
Yeah, so this is a strip mall. We have 2 other businesses in the strip mall currently. It's a hairdresser and Max's Deli. Right next door is also the Raritan Township Fire Company as well.
And what are your hours of operation?
Our hours of operation is Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., Saturday from 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., and Sunday we are closed to the public.
And you briefly mentioned employees before. Can you tell us how many employees you have?
We currently have 9 employees.
And are there specific times that the employees work during the day?
Yeah, our shifts are typically split up between
I have
3.
to slow down again. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Our shifts are split up between 3 shifts. We have a 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. We have an 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. And then we have a 12 p.m. to 8 p.m.
And could you tell the board roughly how many employees?
Is it 12 p.m., 12 noon or 12 midnight?
12 noon
12 noon till when?
to 8 p.m.
And can you, right, I assume the next question is going to be, how many employees do you have at each of these shifts?
That is correct.
In the morning, we have 2. During the afternoon, we have 3. And in the evening, we have 2.
2, 3, 2.
And is there a typical number of dogs that you service on a daily basis?
Yeah, the average is we'll have 10 boarding dogs, about 30 to 35 daycare dogs. We'll have about 3 private lessons, roughly 4 days a week. We'll host about 2 group classes, usually in the evening, twice a week. And we'll have about 3 to 5 grooming appointments twice a week as well.
Taylor, would you go to exhibit 2, please?
John, A2?
Yes. So A2 looks like A1 except for the further out shot, right?
That's correct. How much parking do you have at the current location?
The current location, the total is 54 parking spots. We are allowed 5 for our customers and 5 for our employees.
And have you ever had any parking issues with clients dropping off, picking up dogs?
No, typically it's a very quick drop off because we have all their information and we usually have credit cards or they have a daycare package. So pickup is just as fast.
And how big, in terms of square footage, is the current location?
We have about 4,600 square feet right now.
Okay, and are you able to give the board an idea of the interior layout?
Yeah, what we have right now is as soon as you walk in, you have a lobby. And we have our.
Let me guess, is that shown on Exhibit A?
It is, yes.
Why don't we put Exhibit A3, which is going to be Exhibit 3, which is going to be Exhibit A3 up there.
Okay, so when you do walk in, you walk into our lobby. We have a small playroom off to the right. On the left side, we'll have some storage, bathrooms, and a grooming room. If you go further down the hallway, you'll go into a larger playroom with an outdoor space. We have garage doors that actually open there. And beyond that is where our lodging area is, where the kennels are. So we'll have the suites along the walls, and then we have stackable crates down the center.
And do you utilize any space outside of the location?
We just have a 50 by 30 space outside. Yeah, fenced in.
And when you have your dogs outside, could you talk a little bit about the noise level?
So typically, when dogs are outside, they're not barking because they're doing exactly what they want to do, is play with other dogs. The only time that we'll see any barking is when one of the tenants are walking back and forth to either their car or their dumpster.
And have you had any noise complaints from your neighbors at the site?
We have not.
Can you tell the board a little bit about why you decided you needed a new location?
So currently, we are turning away dogs on a daily basis, anywhere between 1 and 10 on a slower week. In the summer, it can be as much as 30 customers that we have to turn away. So I do also want to cater to dogs that don't necessarily like to play with other dogs. So building a new facility is going to be able to allow me to do that. We also flooded twice in 2021. We had about 6 inches that first time, I think in July. And then for Hurricane Ida, we had about 3 feet of water in the facility. So we did have 17 dogs that night. Of course, I did not leave the facility that night. So we did have to hurry to get our dogs up above that water level. That was a little scary. These are main reasons why I want to leave. I do want to build a new facility. I also want to offer more training classes. There's so much need for agility. So many people ask me about it, and I just don't have the room now. Nose work, CGC, which is canine good citizen testing, and therapy dog testing, which we can do in a new facility.
And how long have you been looking for a new property, and where have you been?
Since September of 2021, when we flooded pretty quickly. So we've been looking at a few different locations. We had a few fall through because of wetlands. It was a little bit hard to build on an area with wetlands that was encroaching on so much of the property. I have looked at pre-built facilities also in the area, but these needed a lot of work and it wasn't ideal for what I wanted to do. The main thing is of having this place currently is I know exactly what I want and what I don't want. And I really want to build a facility that keeps that stress level on dogs as low as possible.
And tell the board why it's important for you to stay in the township.
Our customers are absolutely wonderful. Our residents, even when we flooded, they were always there to help us. They would bring us food as we were cleaning out, and they do trust us. It takes, dogs are the new kids sometimes, so they really I really want to keep that relationship with the residents of Raritan Township and continue my business in this township.
And you are currently under contract to purchase property.
That's correct.
And that purchase is contingent upon a successful application from the board.
That's correct.
Kelly, can we go to exhibit 4, please?
We're going to exhibit 4, which is going to be exhibit A4.
Correct.
Just for board members and Jackie, exhibit 4 is going to be A4. When we get to exhibit 5, there's going to be an exhibit A5A, which is architectural sheet A1. And then there's going to be exhibit A5B, which is architectural sheet A2. When we get to exhibit A6, we're going to have A6A, A6B, A6C, A6D, A6, and A6E. That's the whole sign pack. And then finally, we'll eventually get to the last exhibit, which will be exhibit A7. So where are we right now? We're on exhibit A4, right?
Correct.
Okay, go for it.
All right. Tell the board what exhibit A4 is.
That is the current property that we're under contract for to build our facility.
And where is this property located?
344 Route 31.
Okay. So tell the board some of the things that you like about this property.
So I really like the size of the lot. It is 5 acres, which is a lot more than we have now. I like the location of it. It's right on 31. We have a lot of our customers that go to work and they would pass that anyway. So these are some of the things that I do like. I do like that it's not near any residential properties. So I don't have to worry about noise if that was an issue.
And would you say there's any aspects of the property that you're not wild about?
That ditch that runs right through it is a little bit, it kind of encroaches on it, but it still works for what I need it to work for.
So fair to say the positives outweigh the negatives.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, we're going to have your engineer talk at the next meeting more about specifics about your plans, but would you give the board an idea of what you plan to do with the new facility?
Yes, so I would like to build about a 1,200 square foot facility. This will be designed 12,000, sorry, 12,000 square foot facility. This new design will allow dogs to be in a less stressful lodging area, which is the main goal. We will have we'll have a bigger training area with an outdoor space. There's going to be a section all the way to the right that will house dogs that do not get along with other dogs, and they can do enrichment throughout the day. So these are some of the different things that I'd like to add to the Confident Canine. Having a break room for my employees is extremely important also. I have wonderful employees that work for me, so I want to make sure that they're taken care of as well.
And you're also creating some outdoor areas. Can you talk to the board about that?
Yes, so we'll have 2 large outdoor areas for the dogs that will be part of playtime and would be accessed through a garage door that would be open during the day. The training area will be all grass, and that's another nice large area to have some extended agility courses there.
And any concerns regarding noise levels at the new facility?
None at all, no.
You understand that you're required by town ordinance to have a garbage and recycling?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have this plan with your current location?
I do, yes.
And what is the current plan that you have?
I have a 2.5 yard dumpster. It's picked up twice a week, every other week, sorry, every other Wednesday.
And you're going to add recycling to that schedule?
That's correct.
Okay. You'll have a similar size dumpster for recycling?
Yes.
All right. At the new location, you are aware that you will need to report to the municipal recycling coordinator by February 15th of each year the activity from the prior year?
Yes.
You're also aware that your report has to consist of the amount of recycled materials by the material type and the vendor providing that service?
That's correct, yes.
Are you aware that the garbage and recycling bins have to be kept within outdoor enclosures?
Yes.
and that the acceptability of that location has to be confirmed by the municipal recycling board.
Yes,
And finally, you're aware that before you may obtain the final certificate of occupancy, you have to supply your contract with a hauling company to the township clerk.
yes.
One of the aspects of your application is that we are asking the board for a design waiver from the requirement that there be one designated loading space. Is that correct?
Yes,
Do you need a loading space?
I don't.
And do you have a loading space at your current location?
I don't.
Right. What type of deliveries do you get?
We typically just get supplies once a week. Supplies meaning cleaning supplies, paper towels, toilet paper, a floor cleaner, bleach, that type of thing.
Why no food deliveries?
So our boarding, we allow our customers, we require our customers to bring the food that dogs get at home. So they bring that food with them. It keeps their stress level down to keep their diet the same.
And what's the frequency of deliveries that you receive?
Once a week.
And what type of truck brings the deliveries to you?
Usually an Amazon box truck.
Have the box trucks had any issues entering or exiting the facility?
No,
Have the deliveries caused any issue with your customers entering or exiting?
no.
Is your testimony to the board regarding your operating hours, employees, shift times, number of customers with regard to your current location the same for the new location?
It would be. With the increased amount of dogs, we would add 2 more employees on shift.
Okay. And when you say you're going to increase the number of dogs, how many dogs do you have currently?
We have 45.
Okay. If you're going to a facility that is 3 times what you have now, are you intending on increasing the dogs by 3 times, or what exactly?
We will have 72 dogs.
And why not any more than that?
Well, the reason why is because like I said, I want to keep stress levels down. Anything more than that can cause a little bit of stress in the dogs. 72 seems like a good amount of dogs to have. So that's the main reason, yeah.
And with 72, you'll have sufficient kennel space?
Yes. Mhm.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with the board?
Just that, I really enjoyed having the Confident Canine in Raritan Township. It's been important.
Jackie, do you need a break? You were a little bit garbled there. Do you need to change tape?
No, I'm okay so far.
Okay.
Good. I would really like to keep my business in Raritan Township. There's a need for it, especially with all the new housing that's coming up in the area. Those apartments that are coming up allow 2 dogs in each apartment. So there is a need for the Confident Canine here, and I would really appreciate to stay in this township.
Just quick, you said you're gonna increase from 45 dogs per day now to 72 dogs per day, correct?
That's correct.
And then Mr. McNally asked you, how many employees are you gonna add? Can you do, instead of saying how many you're gonna add, can you go through the same shift, 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m.? Right now, you have 2 employees. What are you gonna go to? How many employees?
So there'll be 3.
Okay. The second shift, which is 8:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., you said right now you have 3. What's that gonna go to?
That would go to 4.
And then the third shift, which is 12 noon to 8 p.m., you said now you have 2 employees. What's that going to go to?
3.
And then the last question is, I don't understand the shifts. Normally, when we hear shifts, like if the hospital comes in or 24-hour operation, it'd be like 6 to 2:30, 2:30 to 8, 8 to whatever. You have 6 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., then you have a second shift coming in at 8:30 a.m.
Yes.
5:30 p.m., then you have a third shift at 12 noon, everything's overlapping.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain that?
Sure. The reason why that happens is in the morning when we get in at 6 a.m., we
You
are
have to
taking
slow
care of
down.
all
You're
of
gonna
the.
have to slow down. I am not getting it.
Sorry about that. Yes. So in the morning, when our kennel staff comes in, we have somebody working in the back to get the dogs fed and taken out. Our play groups will start about 8 o'clock. So that's why the next person comes in, and we have 2 play groups running at the same time throughout the day. When the next person comes in at 12, it allows my staff to get breaks in, work on other things, because there are administrative things to do at the facility also. So once the 12 PM shifts comes in, we still have two groups rotating. Typically, the rotation stops at about 5:30, and that's when we start feeding the dogs. And then at 8 o'clock is the last let out. So that's why there's that overlap.
I have a related question. So since there's overlap, at one time when there's overlap, how many employees are there?
Currently, there'd be 3.
Even during overlap?
With the overlap, would
Yeah,
be
because
3.
I'm looking here, first shift is 2,
Mhm.
second shift is 3.
Right.
So logically, I would say 5, but that's why I'm asking the question since I
Sure.
don't know your
Um,
business.
So if we have 2 people coming in at 6 o'clock to 2:30, then we'll have one more person come in from 8 to 5:30. And then, yes, you're right, 2 more people at 12. So there is a small amount of time from 12 to 2:30 that there are the 5 there.
The other related thing, if I may, you said you have 45 dogs today.
Mhm.
There are 3 functions you do, right?
I'm sorry?
There are 3 specific areas you
In other
focus
words,
on.
you're saying you have boarding, you have daycare, you have grooming. So he's asking 45 dogs, how are they split between those things?
And training.
And training,
And
okay.
training.
So when I say 45 dogs, that basically means the boarding and it also means the daycare. Grooming is a little separate. That's dogs that are staying for daycare will possibly be also groomed. Sometimes we do have outside dogs that come in, but that's not too typical. Our training is typically done after hours in the evening, after 6:30. I do have some I also have some private lessons throughout the day. So if for the 45, that means boarding and daycare. Any additional, we probably do about anywhere between 5 and 10 additional dogs.
Oh, so that's it.
Yes.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So the total number then is around 55.
55
maximum.
typically, yes.
And what is it gonna go for? Because you're gonna do more
Mhm.
stuff, right?
Yes, so it'll be 72 dogs for boarding and daycare. Potentially, we can have training classes go on throughout the day, but typically they're popular in the evening. So we'll still have those 2 classes with 4 dogs in each class after 6 o'clock. And on weekends as well, we're hoping, we don't have training right now on weekends, so we're hoping to add that on weekends also.
The reason I'm asking all this, one of the reasons, there are many, is because of traffic.
Sure.
And so here's my other question. On average, how many dogs per owners? Is it 1:1 ratio or? is it-
So we have mostly 1-on-1 ratio, about 10% is they have 2 dogs. But when dogs are boarding, they're not getting picked up or dropped off. So when it's a holiday season, there's hardly any traffic going through because the dogs stay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
I have one question for you. Do you have a limitation on size of dog?
No. So we don't discriminate on the size of dog. That's why we temperament test.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
I have a question. So essentially, your business needs the space, right?
Yes. Mhm.
And I've actually been in that strip mall before, obviously. Go to Max's. I've actually picked up a dog one time.
Mhm.
Not my dog.
I was gonna say, not your dog.
Not my dog. Where were you 13 years ago? No. So I know, I can tell you that I've never seen, I'm glad you asked the question. I have never seen any traffic issue there with respect to your place. Now, I know this is going to be more, but I think the bottom line is, from what I'm hearing from you, is that there is a need in this township for what you provide, and you need more space, and more space allows you to expand your business possibly into other areas, and to possibly, well, obviously grow your business and make more money too. I mean, that's got to be part of it.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay. Great.
Do you have a vet that comes in and does anesthetic grooming? allow, in other words, putting a dog to sleep to allow grooming to take place?
So although we have vet techs on staff, we don't have a vet that comes in to do that. Might be something to look in the future,
But
though.
the vet tech can give injections to anesthetize the dog so it can be groomed?
We
safely?
don't allow that without a vet present, so not
Okay.
currently, yes.
That's what I wanted to know.
Yeah.
Question?
Okay, thank you.
Whoa. Anyone in the public have any questions? Anyone in the public here on this application?
Is there
Doesn't
anyone
look
on the
like it.
screen that has any questions of this witness?
I think there's just one member of the public.
Okay, can we take that exhibit down so we can see who's up there?
Yes, sir.
I did have one question, and this probably will be addressed later by the engineer. I'm assuming that on A7, which is the picture of the front, that the area for garbage disposal and recycling is this little building that is to the extreme far right, as I'm looking at it.
Looks like
Is that correct?
looks like a shed in the lower right-hand corner of A7. Ask your attorney to show you A7. It looks like it's a photo sim of what the facility is gonna look like.
This particular graphic. And it'd be the lower right-hand corner.
And if you don't know what it is, you can say you don't know, and one of your professionals will say what it is. You know, and tell us what it is.
Oh, that's the garbage?
I believe that's.
And the recycling? Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank
Mhm.
you. Are there any other questions?
Professional, you have any questions? Nope.
Okay.
Next witness.
Thank you.
Qualifying here.
Yeah, you've been sworn, your attorney's got to qualify you now.
Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Keith Chambers, AIA, Chambers Architecture, Inc. And my address is P.O. Box 1058, Flemington, New Jersey, 08822.
And Mr. Chambers, would you give the board the benefit of your professional qualifications, please?
Yes, I graduated with a Bachelor of Architecture from NJIT. I have been licensed for 31 years in New Jersey, and I have my New Jersey and Pennsylvania license are up to date.
Have you testified in front of land use boards in New Jersey before?
Yes, I have.
Have you ever testified before this land use before?
It's been many years, the planning board, but not the Board of Adjustment. As a matter of fact, we designed this building and we had to come and give a presentation for the design of this building, so.
Well, we're going to ask you about what the heck is with the aesthetics
Yeah,
of this
I was
building.
just about to say that.
My boss, AJ O'Sullivan Architects, that's who I worked for at that
Okay.
time.
I
So
won't blame them.
All right.
I was just a worker then, but
We won't
now,
hold it against you.
right, I own my own
Don't use that
firm.
as an example.
Is he still around? Can we call him?
No, he passed.
Mr. Chairman, I'd ask that the board accept Mr. Chambers as an expert in the field of architecture.
Yes, we'll accept him.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Taylor, can we start with what will be Exhibit A5A?
A1 of his exhibit 5.
Okay, so drawing your attention to a two-page document that's entitled Building for the Confident K9 LLC.
I can't hear you.
That
Sorry.
mic, pull that
Yeah.
mic closer to you.
Drawing your attention to the two-page document that's entitled New Building for Confident K9 LLC. Were you engaged by the applicant to create this two-page document?
Yes, I was.
And this is a document that was submitted to the board as part of the overall application, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, let's look at the first document.
And quickly, that first document, it's drawing A1, and what is the last revision date on it? Is it 10/20/22?
Yes, it is.
No. It's A5A, but it's Chambers drawing A1.
Right.
Last revised 10/20/22.
I should have made it SK1 and SK2.
Don't worry about
No
it.
problem. Okay, would you please walk the board through this floor plan, please?
Certainly. Sat down with the client and we worked out a floor plan layout that best suits her needs. We did go through a couple of iterations, but basically you come in the front doors at this end, the left side, and into a lobby. And in that lobby, there's the ADA required bathroom for the public. And that's pretty much where the public and the client has her people, then they meet and take the dogs. Once they go through the double doors, it's really not the public realm anymore. It's more the employees. So they have their lounge, their grooming area, storage, things like that, their office areas and the kitchen. And, this front area, this whole front area is all the employee area. Behind, off that main corridor that goes left to right, behind that is where you have the kennels. And the training area is the largest area on the left. And then the kennels go around the two playrooms, and the training area and the playrooms each have a overhead garage door that opens up into the outside areas. The kennels do go around the training room and around the playrooms, and you have enough there for the required dogs. And we also have the kennel area on the end with outdoor runs. So basically that's the floor plan in a nutshell.
Okay, and just so we're clear, I'm going to touch on the outside grass areas as well.
As far as
Just make sure we highlight, how do they get access out to those?
there's each, required by the building codes. This space is large enough that you need 2 means of egress. We have actually 3, and then there's an overhead door which takes them out into their training outside the training area. There's a large grass area, and also the play areas have a garage door that goes up, and you go out to the fenced in, outside play areas, or where they have their other things set up for, doing training.
Am I correct in assuming that the individual kennels that surround the training room and also the playroom are the ones that are designed for daycare of dogs where?
Those are the suites. Those are the suites. That's correct.
And those that are in the kennel area to the far right are for long-term boarding. Is that right?
Char, is that correct? Or the ones all the way to the right, I mean, they can be used, those are for the dogs that are usually problem dogs that don't get along with other ones, or the ones all the way to the right, are those for?
Those are for dogs that don't get along with other dogs, and the ones that are around playgroups.
It's hard to do
Yeah,
that.
sorry.
She's coming, Jackie.
So the kennels to the right over there, that's for the dogs that don't get along with other dogs. The ones that are around the playroom is also for boarding as well, but they're also for daycare when they take their breaks.
Okay, thank you.
Is that area all the way to the right out of doors? Because I'm skipping ahead to 85B, and you have this chain link fence, and it looks like the kennels all the way to the right-hand side of drawing A5A. Do they have an inside and an outside?
Yes, they have the kennel on the inside, and then they have a guillotine door that goes up and they can go out to a run.
Ah, okay.
And then there's outside runs, and it has a roof over it, so they're protected, but then the chain link goes around it, so,
All right, I got it.
got it, okay.
Yeah, so now let's take a look at A5B.
which is the elevation.
Okay. Will you walk the board through the various elevations you see?
Yeah, the top elevation is what you see from the parking lot area, and also you'd see that from Route 31. That's the, where you have the entrance on the left-hand side. All the windows that you see along are for the various offices and the training and for the kitchen area and things like that. All the way to the right, you won't see that much because it's behind, we have a solid barrier fence so that the dogs can't see people and, get agitated. The next elevation is the left side elevation. That's basically what you're seeing is the entrance from the training area, the egress door for the corridor and a couple offices. And then the high windows are for the training area in the back to allow light and air in. The next elevation is the right side, which is the opposite end with the short side with the chain link fence and the kennels in the middle, and that door opens out for egress. The bottom elevation is your rear elevation with your overhead doors that go out into the fenced in training areas. And on this end to the left, you see the fenced in area for it's basically outdoor runs for the dogs.
And in that last elevation that you just went over, that fenced in area to the left, is that where the dogs that are in that far right kennel have
access to outside runs, so they're not, trapped inside all the time.
Okay. And going up to the first elevation up at the top,
Mhm.
to the right-hand side is that 7-foot high solid fencing?
That's correct.
And what's the purpose of that again, please?
The client wanted a fence so that when people are in the parking lot area or dropping their dogs off, that the dogs in the kennel down that end don't see other dogs and start carrying on or get agitated.
So there would be dogs walking on the other or doing whatever they're doing on the other side of that fence. Is that correct?
They could be out in their runs, yes.
Okay.
Am I correct in assuming that the exterior is corrugated aluminum? Is that right?
That's correct. I brought a sample if you're interested. It's, pre-engineered metal building, and it has, the corrugations. The color that she selected is an earth tone. It's cool gray stone. The rendering kind of represents that in the color. I don't know if you've got a colored rendering, but I have one here to show, and white trim. So it's not with the landscape and everything, it would blend in. It'd be nice.
Is it corrugated aluminum or corrugated steel?
No, it's steel. It's galvanized steel.
Pre-engineered metal building?
That's correct.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
How do the dogs dispose of pee and poop, and how does it get cleaned up?
Where they do it, how do you clean it up?
You'll have to probably discuss that with the engineer. He has a whole.
Yeah.
This one. So currently, and what we'll be doing in the new facility is solid waste goes actually into our dumpster. It'll be in our dumpster, the solid waste.
I'm not getting this.
Is it on?
But where do the dogs do their business?
Oh, they do wherever in the playrooms they would, or outdoor, in the fenced-in area,
Okay, on the grass area, concrete slab area?
concrete slab.
Okay, let's take a look now at
Well, I just wanted to say,
Please finish.
the building elevation to the ridge is only 15 feet, 6 inches. So we have the ability, we looked at two-story structure, but just didn't work out for my client. So this is not that overpowering. It's 15.6 to the ridge, so the front and the rear are even less than that. So it's low, and it's, in the landscape, it's kept low and, low scale. Guess that was, yeah.
All right, so let's turn now to exhibit, this is B6, so A6.
A6A through A6E. A6A is the cover page for the sign package support. A6B looks like the replication of the site plan with indications, notes on where the different signs are going. A6C shows some signs on the building. A6D is a detail of the sign, and A6E looks like it's a detail of the freestanding sign.
That's correct.
So for someone, we forgot to do this in the beginning, what relief, who can I ask what relief is needed for those signs? So I can add it to the list. How about Jeff?
Yes, I did. Based on the proposal, one of the, well, actually, wall sign number 2 is technically not on the wall, it's on dividing fence. So that requires a D variance.
Ask if before Mr. Kyle testifies, which is probably next time, if somehow you can arrange to eliminate that, if possible. If you can't, then you go for it.
We've talked with the client, I mean, she's amenable to moving the sign to the building if that eliminates the relief.
Do you think you can get all the signs in compliance with the ordinance, so they don't need any Cs or D variances?
Yes.
Okay, that would be good.
I can point out to where we want to move the sign to.
Don't even do it. Don't take the time, because you're going to do it before you come back, right?
Yep, you got it.
Okay, so I realize you yourself did not prepare this proposal package, but have you had a chance to review it and familiarize yourself with it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so now we're going to jump around a little bit on this, and I apologize. Let's go to what would be A6.
Let me just make another suggestion.
Absolutely.
Should, Mr. Kyle, in your opinion, is it worth spending the time to do the sign package now if it's going to have to be revised and it's going to be totally compliant?
Probably not.
So I'd say go to Exhibit A7, because you'll save yourself time tonight and in the long run.
All right, so we're going to do A7.
Yes. Basically, A7 was put in so that you could see the rendering was based on the engineer's site plan and the landscaping as best as our renderer could do. And the colors represent what we're going to have the facility. And it even shows the signs here, which, the front sign and the one over the front door and the colors and the pre-engineered building style with the corrugated siding and the scale of what's to be built. That's basically what this shows.
I have a question.
Sure.
So the dumpster we talked about on the right-hand side,
Yes.
is there any possibility it can be somewhere different than that area?
I'll have to let the engineer discuss, that we kicked around different ideas, but this seemed to be the best location for it, for this facility because of all the restrictions that we had.
Is that on the right side?
It's on the right side, yes.
That's where that white barrier fence is?
That's correct. To the far right side.
Far right side.
And that's also going to be easier for the township to pick up, I'm assuming.
That's correct. The turning radius for the truck to come in and back up to it. And it's not, going to be in the way of the front door of the facility when people are dropping off or anything like that.
So even people were dropping off and the truck needed to get in and change the dumpster.
It's not going to be a problem.
Okay,
Mr. Chair, if I could just, I've actually discussed the location of the dumpster with the applicant's engineer. Again, I think the location of the dumpster is acceptable, given the fact that you don't have circulation around other sections of the building here. I do have some concerns with how trucks would circulate there, and I believe the engineer is looking at providing some K-turning areas or something so that wouldn't require a truck to back up across approximately half the parking lot width. So I think you're going to see some revisions to the configuration, but in general, the dumpster is going to stay in its current location and configuration with some additional clearance rooms for turning movements.
What you're saying is the board's going to see those revisions between tonight's hearing and the next hearing.
Correct, yes.
That's
Yeah.
correct.
Because I think the alternative to relocate and I'm sure Mr. Kyle will probably support this argument, is that to put the dumpster in a conforming location would require a lot more impervious cover and extension of the drive aisle, which would impact the site development.
Mr. Chairman,
Question?
just one item on the rendering. The driveway that's rendered in that picture may or may not have a mountable concrete island in it, which we will discuss at another meeting, but depending on the outcome with NJDOT. correct?
NJDOT, that's correct.
So that's another change that will most likely be made between now and next time.
That's correct.
I think Mr. Farcio has a question.
Well, I actually had a question about the sign, which we're not talking about tonight, but I guess,
They said they're going to come back with a fully compliant sign package.
yeah, well, my question was, is it going to be, like, the sign has to be visible from the road, though? Is that one of the issues that we have? I don't know.
No.
No? Okay.
This is one of the rare cases. No, that's
Okay.
not the issue.
That's why I asked.
I have questions about the entrance, but I want to hold off on that probably till next time. Okay,
Well, why don't you ask them, because if as a result of the question, they want to make that some kind of change, they can make that change with the other changes.
okay.
they made.
So I haven't been able to read all the reports, so I apologize. So it looked like we were talking about that there was gonna be no left-hand turn. It was gonna be right in, right out. Is that correct?
That's what the site plan currently shows.
And I did read somewhere where, yes, there is a break because of the light at Stop and Shop and light up at Deer Path that may allow for traffic to allow left-hand turns. What is the reason for what is the reason for the design that they have today?
So they were directed by NJDOT to do that design. I've recommended to them that they push back on DOT and actually propose a full movement driveway like is shown in that picture for the interim period until DOT puts a median barrier. Then it would have to be a right in, right out. If DOT ever were to put a median barrier in that section. I think for this initial period where you don't have a median barrier and you have a driveway right across the street that looks just like that with full movements,
Yeah.
I think this should mirror what's across the street. This should allow left turns. It's more convenient for all of our customers. They don't have to go past the site and turn around at Stop and Shop and come back up to get in. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah, and I agree with that recommendation. I live in that area. There is always that break in the traffic because of those lights. It would be very cumbersome to have to come back to turn around. So, all right, thank you.
I think that would be a bigger mess, too.
Yes.
It'd be a way bigger mess for traffic.
Yeah.
So
Jay, is
I
there
agree with you.
Is there space on the side of that road for acceleration and deceleration? In other words, that when you come out, you're not literally coming directly out into the flowing traffic?
Well, it's 2 lanes there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, is there a wide apron there? Do you remember?
Yes, for the exiting traffic, they're at a stop condition. So they're only going to move on a gap in traffic.
So you
Right.
don't need the acceleration, deceleration. They're going to use sight distance and gaps created by the signals to get out. Deceleration, I think, is already accomplished by how wide northbound 31 is there. You would just pull over to the right and you'd be able to slow down and you wouldn't hurt the northbound through traffic.
Okay, thank you.
Here's one last question. Then. I thought you were going to ask this one. The driveway there, it looks small there. Are there two cars going to be able to go
Yeah.
in either direction? It looks like it's a one-lane road right now, like that one-lane driveway.
Yeah, that's a bad.
It's going to be,
It's going to be bigger?
it's going to be two lanes. I mean, it's just the way the rendering was done, I guess.
Okay.
You can see, she's got an arrow go this way and then she's got a stop coming out. So there is, two lanes.
Okay.
It's just the perspective that it's taken at.
Any other questions?
I guess while I'm asking, the only thing rendition, the picture that you have here is, you're making them make a complete right-hand turn. You really should have them angle in. I mean, make it easier for them to get in. You're actually making, the picture looks like you're gonna have to literally stop almost to make a right turn. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, no, and the engineer will discuss his plans, which may be
Okay.
like that. The person that did the rendering, I didn't do it personally.
Understand.
So, she has
Yeah, but that's what we're
artistic license, but I understand that's what you're
seeing.
looking at. Yeah.
I'm a very visual person.
No, I understand that. That's why we try to show as much as possible
Sure.
here.
Yeah, for safety reasons.
Sure. Of course. Understood.
Counselor, I see that we're at 8:30. We're going to go another 15 minutes. So my question to you is, how long do you see? Is this witness finished or?
This witness is finished as long as there's no public questions.
And
Okay.
again, is there anyone in the public here on this application? And again, it's no. So I think he actually not only is he credible by saying he's coming back, he also said he was going to put two witnesses on and he's finished before his allotted time. I say to you,
Better get while the getting's good.
Do you want to bring another witness on at this point?
No,
During those
Mr.
15
Chairman.
minutes?
no,
We're-
it doesn't make, he's smart. It doesn't make sense because you're going to be making changes. So he's holding off the engineer and the planner until after the changes are made.
That's
I wanted to
correct.
give you the opportunity.
I appreciate that. Thank you
So,
very much.
The hearing in this matter is going to be continued to when, and when does the board's time within which to decide run out?
You can do June 15th or July 6th. They have until July 15th
Okay, so
for
put it
a
this
time
way.
extension.
So you guys are gonna do these revisions. Now, the board rules say you gotta have them filed 21 days before the hearing date. So that, I'm not criticizing any board experts, this is just factual. The courts were coming in, 11th hour, 12th hour. Board is not filled with that, and this has nothing to do with the applicant, this is just happened. So if the board rules follow, that things be filed 21 days in advance, generally, the board experts can get their reports 10 days in advance. Is June 15th too soon for you? Because if you want it, you can have it. If you can make it, otherwise July 6th.
So we'll take July 6th.
July 6th. Okay, so the hearing in this matter is going to be continued to July 6th, 2023 at 7 PM in this room. And let's get an extension in case of some kind of natural disaster. I can't think of one, but it could be a tornado, right? Not that there would be one. Let's get an extension to August 31.
That's fine.
July 6th is going to be a problem for me, probably, but I'll see what I can do.
Maybe a problem for me.
Okay, let me ask you this. Is it a problem that you're totally unavailable or is it a Zoom potential?
Listen, I gave you the Zoom in San Diego. I don't believe it's going to be a Zoom opportunity for me on the 6th.
Okay, you need 5 right now. You got a 6-member board because they're down a person. Cynthia, what about you?
I could probably do it soon from the hotel room.
Jim, how about you?
I can't answer that. For me, I can't answer that for sure.
And let me ask you this. What's the next
At
one
this
after
point.
July 6th?
That is
July 6th probably is a problem for most.
July
July
20th will be
20.
the next one, right?
Mhm.
Jeff, is there any word about the new board member? I understand there is a potential new board member. And I actually was told that that person would be here tonight. I'm surprised they're not. Have you heard anything? Okay. All right, then I know more than you
If
do.
you guys don't object to getting last minute reports, you could ask the board to waive the 21-day submission rule. But you got to do the 10-day MLUL submission. So if the board is willing to say, you know what, all right, look, you're making changes, we understand the basics of the case, so we don't mind getting things at the last minute. Can you guys pull it off for June 15th if you have to have stuff filed
Yeah, I
by
don't
June
think-
5?
And I'd rather make sure that we get things done right in one shot to the board and everybody.
Okay, so how does July 20th look for board members? Anyone have a problem with that? July 20th?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine.
Okay, so then this matter is going to be continued. If you want to have at least 6 and hopefully 7 members beside the application where you need, a minimum of 5.
Do we have to decide tonight? I mean, maybe Jim and Steve can provide an answer next week or?
For July 6th?
or you-
I know I'm out. I'll be,
It's a problem.
Okay.
it's a problem for me.
Let's carry the hearing then, instead of July 6th to July 20th. And we'll still get the same extension to August 31st. Yes?
Yes.
Okay, no need for further notice.
All right. Thank you very much.
You want to take a break?
We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Like to call the meeting back into order. And the third case for tonight is BOA case number 5-2023. The applicant is Five Birds Farm LLC. The location block 86, lot 26.01. The address 43 Highway 202 and 31. The application is a request for expansion of a non-conforming use. Counselor?
Chairman Aaron's, members of the planning board, and members of the public that are here tonight, thank you. My name is Noelle Lessica. I'm an attorney with Gebhardt and Kiefer, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Five Birds Farm LLC. And just as a preliminary matter, I would like to reserve time at the conclusion of testimony to provide a short summation.
And also, can you spell your name for our?
Yes, first, yes, Noelle, N-E-L, last name Lessica, L-E-S-I-C-A. Five Birds Farm LLC they're the owners of property located at 43 Route 202, Route 31. The property is currently improved with a single-family residence and several accessory buildings. 2 of those accessory buildings are the focus of tonight's proceedings, a barn and a small cottage. The applicant is here tonight to apply for several variances in order to continue the long-standing event venue operation on the property. A D variance to expand the pre-existing non-conforming event venue to include the barn and cottage. A C variance from ordinance section 296-155 to have an unpaved and uncurbed parking area. And C variances for all non-conforming structures on the property. And these consist of the 2-story single-family home is only 16 feet from the front boundary line where 50 feet is required. A 1-story garage is only 1.3 feet from the side property line where 15 feet is required. And I note that these variances were not originally applied for, but the applicant wishes to amend its application on the record to include these variances as noted in the board planner's May 12, 2023 review letter.
Right, and in my opinion, this is not a notice problem. They have a catch-all, and these are variances for existing conditions, correct?
Correct. Additionally, the board's planner noted in his review letter of May 12, 2023, an issue with the width of the drive aisles in the parking area And during our engineer's testimony, it can be discussed if additional variance relief is required. The board's planner also notes the need for a design waiver from ordinance section 296-75G5 and 296-75G5 regarding lighting in the parking area. The applicant also requests any variances that the board deems necessary during the course of the hearing tonight. The applicant has received a letter of no interest from the Hunterdon County Planning Board. This letter was sent to the board's planner dated May 2nd, 2023. Tonight, we will present 3 witnesses: Anna Maribor, one of the owners of Five Birds Farm, and then Eric Rupnarin, our engineer, and then finally Jim Kyle, our planner. The testimony provided by the engineer and planner will show that the positive and negative criteria will be met for all of the requested variances. Before we begin the testimony, I would like to give the board some brief history on the property and explain why the applicant is before the board on this application. The exhibits we will be referring to tonight were submitted a short while ago to the board secretary. Many of the exhibits the board may have already seen. However, I thought it best to make them readily available and easy to refer to. Mr. Drill, does the board want to pre-mark these?
The first thing I want to do is get the witnesses sworn.
Okay.
So, Anna, what's your last name and can you spell it?
My first name is Anna and my last name is Moriber. M as in Mary, A-U-R-I-B-E-R.
How do you spell your first name?
A-N-A-H.
Could you please spell that again, your last name?
Pull back a
Pull
little.
back.
from the mic. Yeah, go slow.
A-N-A-H.
She speaks like me, loud enough to be 10 to 12 inches from the mic. And spell your last name one more time slowly.
M as in Mary, A-U-R-I, B as in boy, E-R.
Okay. Eric, I can never pronounce your last name, so without disrespect, I call him Eric when he testifies here. But can you say your last name and spell it for the record?
Certainly. Eric Rupnarin, R-U-P-N-A-R-A-I-N.
Okay. And Eric, you're a PE, correct? And you're the applicant's engineering expert, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Kyle.
James Kyle,
K-Y-L-E.
K-Y-L-E, professional planner for the applicant.
And you're the board's planning, you're the applicant's planning expert, correct?
Correct.
All right. Let's start right over here, Jay. Go right around.
Jay Troutman, McDonough and Ray Associates, traffic consultant to the board.
Mark Triniak, PE, Ferrero Engineering, Board Engineer.
Jeff Vaccarella, Township Planner.
And in this case, is the board planning expert, correct? Because Jessica's not participating, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Mr. Thomas.
John Thomas, Board Landscape Architectural Expert.
Okay, can everyone raise their right hand? Did everyone swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? Start right over there.
I do.
Yes.
I do. I do.
John Thomas.
I do.
So now the exhibits. So you have exhibits 1 through 10. So why don't we just pre-mark them A1 through A10? And it looks like exhibit A1 is a copy of board resolution number 2016-01. It's like it was yesterday. Board members who are on the board, doesn't it?
It does.
Man, time flies, I'll tell you that. Wow. Please. And how do you like that? This is not a long resolution. Shocker. 5-page resolution. Didn't know it was possible. Okay. Then we have exhibit A2, which I assume is a copy of the application that was filed, which precipitated exhibit A1, the resolution. Is that correct?
Correct.
So A2 is the underlying Doris Simpson application. It has a Schedule A on it, and it has a Schedule B on it. Oh, and it has a site plan map attached to it, correct?
Yes.
Let me put these two dividers back in because they're not stapled. Exhibit A3 is a memo that former township engineer Tony Hajar wrote to the Board of Adjustment dated January 18th, 2016 regarding the Doris Simpson application. Exhibit A4, a copy of an email from Jeff Vaccarella to Anna, how do you pronounce your last name?
Moreover.
Moreover, dated January 9, 2023. Yeah, my name's mentioned in there, and this also refreshes my recollection. I would have totally forgotten about that. Exhibit 5 is going to be Exhibit A5, and can someone tell me what Exhibit A5 is? It looks like two aerial photos of something.
Yes, 2002 and 2020 and the 1930s, I believe.
Okay, so why don't we, so A5 is a bunch of, there's 3 photos. So let's mark it A5A, A5B, and A5C. Now, everything else that you've submitted to now, the board can take judicial notice of. Who's going to testify about these exhibits A5A, A5B, and A5C? I'll put it this way. You don't have to tell us now, but what I'm saying is we need someone at some point to be able to testify about these, what they are, how they were made, how reliable they are, et cetera, et cetera. You don't have to do it right now, but at some point, someone has to do that for these to be admitted into evidence before the board. A6. Yep, I'm going to ask you, this looks to be a business record from the township that was probably gotten in an open request is my guess, but
Construction department.
this is the result of a construction department open request. So the board can take judicial notice of this. So you guys just mark down for now, A5, you got to do something with to get that admitted. A7. This, again, looks like a business record from the fire marshal. Correct? So A7, the board can also take judicial notice of. A8 is our photographs. It looks like photographs of the barn, photographs of the tent, photographs of a wedding of people dancing, et cetera, et cetera. So these photographs are going to need someone testify either who took them or they accurately represent things occurring on certain dates. So
John, are those A8A?
yeah, we're going to go A8A through, let's find out how much. A8A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J. Okay, we have A8A through A8J are the photographs. Again, someone's going to have to testify to get them into evidence. Then we have Exhibit A9, which looks to be Again, from the underlying Doris Simpson application, it looks to be the then traffic expert Joe Rociola's January 27, 2016 report, which the board can take judicial notice of. And then A10 is an exhibit prepared by Jim Kyle's office. So he will be testifying about that, and he'll be responsible for getting that entered into evidence. So those are all the exhibits that are marked. Jackie, let me ask you, did I go too fast or did you get all that?
I got it.
Okay. Set to go.
Thank you. Just to address briefly the background of this wonderful business, in 1974, the previous owners of the property, Doris and Ed Simpson, they operated a restaurant called Muirhead Restaurant, event venue, and small food production facility on the property. At that time, the property was in the highway commercial zone where eating and drinking places were permitted. In 1979, the zoning was changed to residential. The food production and event venue uses were continued by the Simpson family until about 2014, when the property was sold and began operating as an event venue known as the Farmstead at Ringo's. My clients purchased the property in 2022 with the intent to continue the event venue business on the property. Pursuant to a 2016 resolution of the Board of Adjustment, the restaurant, event venue, and food production uses were deemed pre-existing non-conforming uses entitled to continue. I have provided a copy of that resolution to the board as Exhibit A1. Unfortunately, the barn and the cottage, while there, were not specifically noted as being part of the use. The township's zoning officer informed the applicants in January 2023 that the barn and cottage were not included in the pre-existing non-conforming use determination, and a variance was required. However, it is clear from the application submitted by the Simpson family in 2015 that those two structures existed on the site. Please refer to Exhibit A2, which I have provided, which is a copy of that application and the map of the property depicting those two structures. A review of historical aerial photographs and the township's construction records indicate that the barn and the cottage have existed on the property prior to 1997. Exhibit A5 is an aerial photograph provided to us by your planner dated 2002. And Exhibit 6 is the construction permit log for the property dating back to
Well, hold up
1997.
1 second. A5 was provided by our planner, the board's planner?
Yes, that's what I understand.
Sorry, Tara St. Angelo.
Yeah, actually, why don't you come up to the microphone and also enter your appearance? You're from the same law firm?
Same law firm, Gebhardt and Keeper, Tara St. Angelo. I
Yeah.
apologize for being late. I was very lucky that Noel was able to be here.
No problem.
When we were going back and forth with your zoning officer, Mr. Vaccarella, he provided the two aerials. There was debate about what structures were there, if pavement was expanded, et cetera, and he provided those to us.
Where did you get these A5A and A5B?
I got them off the NJDB's NJGeoWeb database.
A5B. A5B from NJDOT. NJDEP GeoWeb database. So I'm now going to say that the board can take judicial notice of these. Not, but so what year is A5A? What year is A5B? What year is A5C?
I am sorry, I thought the little check boxes next to them, when Mr. Vaccarella provided them to us, I think it got cut off. It had a sidebar that had a checkbox that indicated the
I have
date.
it here on the screen.
Let's take a look on the screen.
It must be when I printed it. I apologize.
The first one is 2002.
Can you put it up on the screen so we can see it? Joel?
So A5A is 2002, correct?
Mhm. Just one
Let's get
moment.
on the screen.
that, when I printed it, it cut off that nice box that Mr. Vaccarella had provided us showing the dates.
Is an NJDOT GeoWeb database image from 2002.
John, I can't hear you.
I'm not talking into the mic, and I apologize, Jackie. A5A is an NJDEP GeoWeb database image from 2002. A5B is an NJDEP GeoWeb database image from
2000, should be 2020.
ask our board secretary to confirm.
Correct.
2001?
20.
2021,
2020.
2020. Okay. And then
And then-
A5C actually says on the top of it, NJ 1930 black and white imagery. Now,
Yeah.
where is this one from?
I did that when I went to the same website as Mr. Vaccarella and literally just checked a different box, and that map is the oldest map that is available. It is not, obviously not very clear. But it was there.
1930.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Keep on rolling.
Can I ask before we proceed with that, can we go back to A5B? And can you show us on this, the different buildings? Obviously, the house.
Roger, let them do that during the case.
Okay.
Let them do that during the case.
Fine.
This is, she's setting up she's giving a nice introduction going through, and they'll have someone do that.
Just so I know, just like Confident Canine, if you guys want me to show on a screen, just because John Morgan Thomas is there, just let me know which exhibits you guys are talking about, just because it goes back and forth.
Tara, she's on a roll.
At this time, I'm going to pass the microphone to my colleague, Tara.
Okay. She's off the roll.
Okay, thank you very much. I apologize for being late, but I'm sure Noel could have carried this through to its fruition. But, here I am. As I said before, I'm Tara St. Angelo from Gebhardt and Kiefer. And I think Noel has provided a great introduction to this application. I wanted to let the board know, why are we actually here? What are we looking for? I think that's an important context.
You're gonna have to slow down, whatever the reason is.
Yeah, actually, just so you know, the first applicant tonight, we're all mellow. He was slow, he enunciated his words, and Noelle was taking notes, but she got up, she was slow. Look at me. I'm normally Mr. Excited. I'm nice and mellow. So the theme of the evening.
Okay, I was prepared for a John Drill application. I will change gears.
Mellow, mellow.
Well, I think that theme goes with, let's say, the atmosphere that they are trying to create at the Five Birds Farm. So with that, I will present Anna Morber, one of the owners of Five Birds Farm LLC, if you want to swear her in.
Everyone's been sworn
Oh,
in.
sworn in. I missed all of that. So to begin, Anna, can you state your name and spell it for the record? Or did we do that already?
Yeah, she did that also.
Okay.
In fact, she spelled it twice because she went too fast the first time. She actually told her to slow down.
Okay, well then, next up, what is your relationship to Five Birds Farm LLC?
I own it with my husband, Matthew.
And are you also the owner of the property we're here talking about?
We are, yeah, business and property.
And you just heard we described the historic use of the site as a restaurant, event venue, et cetera. How are you going to be continuing the use of the site?
Our plan is to continue it identically to the way that the previous owners were using it. The only difference between the way that they were using the property and the way that we intend to use the property is we live there. They did not reside on the property. We live there with our son, our 4-year-old. And my background is in event production, specifically with regard to sustainability in event production. And that is our primary focus on the property, is to have a very robust, sustainable native species, soil regenerated property, and that we're returning hopefully to its original state.
And will you be continuing the restaurant use on the site?
Not at all, no.
And will you be continuing any of the retail food operations on the site?
No.
Okay, so hold on. So when you say you're no longer going to continue the restaurant use, are you going to remove everything out of that building from the restaurant and put something else in there? Or are you
The
going to,
restaurant, oh, pardon me.
or are you going to keep the things in there for use in the catering and events?
Right, so the restaurant was in the main home
Right.
that had a commercial kitchen in it. We live in that home, and so we don't allow caterers to come in and out. There's a carriage house adjacent to the home.
Okay, so in the home,
Mhm.
the restaurant and the commercial kitchen are being removed?
Correct. We have no intention of having a restaurant there. We live there with our
Okay,
family.
so that use, you're going to voluntarily
Certainly.
abandon, thank you, abandon the restaurant use, correct?
Well, don't want to disparage my cooking skills, but no.
The carriage house also has a commercial
The
kitchen?
carriage house does have a commercial kitchen, and that was the retail facility that she was, pardon me, that Doris Simpson was preparing and retailing her condiments out of from your head.
You're gonna have to slow down.
Yeah, the kitchen equipment in the carriage house that was being used to produce the food products and items that were being
Mhm.
sold retail.
Mhm.
That equipment's going to remain, but you're going to abandon the retail sales and you're going to use that equipment now to make food for the events taking place on the property? Question?
We do not do any food production. There's no oven or stove
So what's gonna
in that
happen-
commercial kitchen. It's
what's gonna
simply
happen-
used as a staging facility for the caterers who come on board.
Are you going to have any equipment in the carriage house or are caterers just coming in with their own stuff?
They come in the way that the previous owners used it and the way that we intend to continue using it is identical. We have preferred vendors who fully prepare the food in their own facilities, provide us with a certificate of insurance, and then come on property with that prepared food and display it for the
Right,
wedding.
but when you purchase property,
Mhm.
what food preparation equipment, if any, was in the carriage house?
None.
None. Aha.
There are commercial sinks in there. There are stainless steel surround prep tables.
Right.
What you would,
That's
you
what I
know,
mean. So that's the equipment that's in there.
that's still there, and that we intend to keep that there in support of the caterers who come in, who need to decamp their food, stage it, and get it ready for a wedding.
Will there be a refrigerator?
There is one refrigerator and one freezer. They're both typical size, standing next to one another.
And commercial stove and oven?
None.
So what you're saying is the food prep equipment, which consisted of prep tables and refrigerators and sinks, are going to remain, but the use is going to change. It's no longer going to be for the manufacture, packaging, or for lack of a better word, of food for retail sale. It's going to be for use by caterers at your events.
Correct.
None of the food.
Can you
will be
elaborate
cooked
what's,
None of the food has been cooked there.
I think there was another question.
yeah, can you elaborate what staging means?
Staging means
Yeah.
a caterer, for instance, would do all the food prep and cooking off-site in their own facility. They come in a box truck with food warmers. They place that food on top of a stainless steel preparation table, put it in chafing dishes with sternos, and set it out on a buffet, for instance, or plate it and set it in front of the guest.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay, so going off of that, can you go over what a typical event day at the property would look like, from the arrival of caterers to the arrival of guests, et cetera?
Sure. Typically, the couple would come, typically the bride first, would get there with her attendants and close family, would have her hair and makeup done, first look pictures, that type of thing. Typically, the groom or other member of the couple would come around noon, and they would be in the groom shack, likewise would get ready and so forth. Typically, our events start at 4:30. Weddings would start at 4:30, and so guests would start arriving and preparing for the ceremony. They would have a ceremony in that time that guests are arriving. I'm sorry, prior to that, caterers would have been there. The other vendors that would have come would be a florist, a photographer, possibly a videographer, perform their duties. And then the ceremony would typically start at 4:30. Guests would arrive. A wedding would take place, a typical dinner or dancing, whatever they prefer to do. And then they would leave by the 10 o'clock noise ordinance.
And how would, so the two structures that are really the focus of this application are what we call the cottage and the barn. Can you describe how the barn is used as part of the day?
Sure. The barn is typically where the DJ is. It's essentially a shelter, really. All the doors are open, and the DJ would be in there and dancing would be in there. All the food and drinks are typically served under a tent.
And where is the tent located typically?
Directly adjacent to the barn.
Is the tent kept up the entire time, or you only put it up when you have an event, or do they have to rent the tent? Is it your tent?
We have a preferred vendor that we use. We include that in the venue rental fee. We facilitate that coming on property. And
the previous owners would get obviously the necessary permits for the tent, and will you be continuing that same
absolutely
practice?
Mhm.
And then can you explain how what we call the cottage will be used?
We refer to it as the bridal suite. It's really just a typical dressing lounge.
And there's no overnight stays in that cottage?
No, no overnight stays.
When you purchased the property, what was in the cottage and what was it used for?
Exactly the same way that we're using it. It's set up like a home. They had it decorated like a home. It has obviously a bathroom and a kitchen in it. It's a cottage, but it's only used to facilitate the preparation for the wedding for one of the couples.
Is the kitchen ever used?
No.
Going back to the barn.
Sure.
You said the tent is where you serve the food and people eat, but the barn is where the DJ is set up and that's just dancing?
Yeah, really. Just it's kind of long and narrow. It's just not appropriate for a typical dinner.
Is there a bar area in the barn? Is there a bar?
It's just one big room.
How many people do you get at the wedding?
We kind of max out at 125 is where we're comfortable.
And what do
But
they do with the parking?
say that again. I'm sorry.
The parking.
The parking is, we use
Can I
the,
make- can I make a
yeah, do you want to?
suggestion? Hold off on the parking until Jay Troutman goes, because he's reviewed that.
Yes, and our engineer can talk a
Yeah.
little bit more specific about where the parking is and the capacity of that parking.
And when you say you're maxed out at 120, is that 125 guests? That doesn't include the caterer and the other service people, correct?
Correct.
125 guests.
We could certainly have more on the property, but that's the scale that we're comfortable at. Yeah.
And I wanted to address the board's planner in his planning memo asked about how the Black and River Western train operates on the site because there is the Black and Western train line runs along one of the back property line at the site.
They had engaged them as an opportunity for a bride and groom to get delivered to their wedding, to have maybe a cocktail hour, but it is on their own property. They simply use our stop.
And the train doesn't stop at your property unless it's specifically booked by someone having an event at.
Correct. A bride and groom would have to book the property or book the train independently, and we would coordinate with them.
And what will the typical hours of operation for an event be?
I would say a typical arrival would be 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock is our hard stop. It's our noise ordinance.
And what months of the year do you estimate you'll operate?
May through late October.
And how many events per week do you anticipate?
We would like to on Saturdays and Sundays or Fridays and Saturdays, but typically one.
Oh, and going back to, this is comments and questions that actually the engineer had. Can you explain how catering deliveries will happen, where the catering truck would park and how everything gets loaded into the appropriate area?
They would, well, they park directly in front of the carriage house, which is where the commercial kitchen is that we just discussed. Typically, they would decamp that food, get it ready, and then either drive it or walk it down, depending on the scale, down to the tent, which is maybe 25 feet, 30 feet.
Okay, and there was a question about parking. We're gonna let the engineer go into more detail, but just generally, will you have parking attendants on site? How will parking and traffic be directed on site?
Yep, we erect temporary signs when there's an event happening. It's very clear which direction a car should go, and as they come to the carriage house exactly, they would be directed by a parking attendant that would check them in, get their names, and then walk them to their parking space.
And then again, also the engineer had questions about trash collection. Can you just explain generally what your trash collection schedule would be, et cetera?
Yep, we have a dumpster on site. We have every other week pickup. Although we are exploring having multiple pickups if the event is scaled appropriately.
And again, a comment from the board's planner was about there are foundation remains from older buildings on the site that were either demolished or fell down. Can you describe how those will be used or reused? 2
of them were previously made into fire pit areas. It had 2 wells on it essentially, and they built fire pits on it. And the other one we turned into a meadow.
But
We planted native species meadow. There's nothing there.
there's no intent to reuse those foundations
Absolutely
for
not.
structures. And I have no more questions for her unless the board or anyone has questions.
Can you describe where the dumpster is located on the site?
It's directly next to the garage, so up towards the front of the property.
We're referring to the site plan that was submitted with the application. Do you want her to point to it on the?
No, I got it. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Anything else before I move on to the next witness?
I guess my only question is, and I think I can answer it myself, but just.
Can you louder?
Sure. I know you're surrounded by farmland. And there's a development across the street, correct? So when you have these events, there's no issues with noise going across the street, right? It's too far away, there's a highway.
It's too far away. It's across a 4-lane highway 202. We happen to have one of our neighbors who lives directly in that neighborhood, who is here in support of us.
Okay.
For that exact reason.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Then, if there are no more questions, I'd like to move on to our engineer. Oh.
That's to do with the address. There's actually indication of a A and a B. Was there a 2-family at one point, or was there reference?
We don't know. We do believe that Doris and Ed Simpson, we heard from other people locally that they had moved either her parents or his parents into that cottage at some point, but it would have been in the 60s and 70s.
Okay. That's the only thing that we can surmise why there's an A and a B address.
Yeah.
So there would be a condition. Would you agree to a condition that would eliminate one of the units?
I can't hear you.
Jeff wants to know if they'd agree to, if the board granted the approval they're looking for, if they would agree to a condition. Go down to the post office and tell them you don't want any A and B anymore. You just want your number.
Absolutely. We have no intention of using it in any other way.
Any questions from the public for this witness? Counsel? You wanna
Okay,
call
I'd
your
like
next
to,
witness?
yes, I'd like to move on to our engineer. I'm going to assume I don't have to swear him in or qualify him as an
You
expert.
gotta qualify.
Okay,
Got everything queued up other than qualifying.
so this is our engineering expert, Eric Ruppner. I believe he has appeared before this board before. So with that, I would ask that the board accept him as an expert unless anyone has questions about his qualifications.
No, we will accept him as an expert.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, and at this point, really with Eric, I think I can just wind him up and let him go. So if you want to just go in and describe the property and use.
Right, just remember, you can wind them up, but let them go slow.
Eric is very relaxed.
Yes. So the exhibit that I have mounted on is this a sheet number 2 within the plan set that the board has? And
Jackie,
is,
can you hear Mr. Ripner?
He's very, very quiet.
Okay, we're gonna ask him to speak up, but go slowly.
What you're saying is that you have sheet 2 of the plan set up on the board, so we're not gonna mark it, that's a demonstrative exhibit. There's an identical color map in the board, in the plan set, correct?
yes.
Okay, and the board, I see some board members have it open, and we have it open here at the professionals table also, so go ahead.
Thank you. Primarily what this plan is meant to show is the property in relationship to the surrounding areas. To the west, which would be to the right of the plan sheet, we have Route 202, which is a 4-lane divided highway.
Eric, could you step back from the mic?
Right,
Okay,
that's it. And
Better?
slow down.
Try it again. Just say something.
testing.
Go back.
How about now?
Thank you.
You're welcome. So this plan essentially shows the property, all of the improvements on the property as it sits in relationship to the neighborhood. So to the right side of the sheet, which is the easterly direction, we have the frontage of the property, which is about 250 feet, and it fronts along the southerly side of Route 202. 202 is a 4-lane divided highway, 2 lanes northbound, 2 lanes southbound. The applicant's property currently has 1 means of ingress egress into the site, and that is a gravel driveway that's located along the southerly portion of the property. As you can see on the aerial exhibit, the area immediately adjacent to the right-of-way with Route 202, that area is pretty heavily wooded. If during the normal spring, summer, fall months when the leaves are out, it is difficult to see into the property from the highway. And certainly if you are across the street in a residential development, it's even more difficult to see. Likewise, the northerly property line, that area has a planted buffer that consists of deciduous trees and also evergreen trees. And again, if you're standing on that property looking towards the applicant property, there's a lot of vegetation currently that you would have to look through in order to see on site. Similarly, okay, we'll skip that word. Along the southerly property line, we have a similar situation. There's a lot of, there's a woods line along that portion of the property that really screens this site. Essentially, this site is screened from the north, the south, and the east. And the only area where there is some opening, which is essentially the view of this property, is down towards the west, which is along the railroad tracks that are located along that side of the property. That's essentially what this exhibit shows. The second plan that I have is the site plan, which is sheet number 3. And this plan essentially shows all of the improvements on the property. It shows the main dwelling, which is located towards Route 202. That is a two-story dwelling. It also shows the garage, which is located along that southerly property line. That's a one-story garage, and immediately to the right of the garage, as you're looking at this plan sheet, and to the south, that's where the dumpster is located on this site. Directly across from that garage is another two-story garage, and that is the building that currently has the commercial kitchen in it. And that is the building where in front of that building is a relatively large gravel parking area, combination driveway. That's where the loading or non-loading of any of the food or supplies that would be necessary for the facility to function will be brought. We anticipate in terms of delivery, not tractor trailers or semis, essentially box trucks, that type of delivery. The site is plenty large currently with the gravel area that we have to accommodate a box truck coming in, pulling into the loading area, turning around, and then leaving as necessary. Also, what we're showing on this plan in that hatched area that's located to the north, currently that hatched area is what we're looking to have as essentially a grass parking area. The Ringo's Farmstead, they previously used that area for parking whenever they had events on site. The applicant is proposing to use that same area in a similar manner. We're showing 24 parking spaces within that area, and it'll be grass. We're not proposing any gravel improvements or any improvements to that area. The applicant is trying to make this essentially a, not necessarily low-key, but a low-impact type development where we're trying to maintain as much of the natural features of the property as we can and not really improve this the way we would typically improve a general commercial site, curbing, pavement, and so forth. That area has been used for parking before, so the soil is fairly well compacted. In my inspections of the property, there are no obvious ruts or things like that that's generally created when you have cars or automotive traffic that's being parked on a non-paved surface. The area is stable, and we anticipate that that area will remain the same. Additionally, the building that's hatched towards the middle of the property, and that is the one-story barn where all of the, I guess, the more entertaining activities will occur. Any of the dancing, the DJ, as Anna indicated, that is the building that they will utilize for that. The building, it's an enclosed building. It is definitely not a weather-tight building. If you're standing inside and all the doors and windows are closed and the breeze blows outside, you will feel it on the inside. So it's that type of a building. It's an old building. It shows up on all of the old historic aerials, going back to the oldest one that DEP has on their website. The building shows up. It's difficult to make out, but the building has existed on the property for a very long time, and we're looking to utilize the building for entertaining purposes. Adjacent to that building to the west is where the applicant is proposing to construct 2 parking spaces. To meet the ADA accessibility code requirement, we're going to construct 2 handicap parking spaces adjacent to the building. The appropriate solid surface into the building will be provided via ramps, solid concrete ramps. I noted that the board engineer indicated that he wants additional spot elevations or topographic information for that. We are certainly more than happy to provide.
You have to slow down. I'm sorry.
I knew it was coming, Jackie. My apologies. So we will be more than happy to provide that to the board. In addition to that, the carriage house, which is the bridal suite, that is the building that's located furthest to the rear or to the west on the property, and that's located a couple of 100 feet away from the barn itself. The entire property currently is covered in gravel for all of the driveways and the parking areas, buildings, and lawn. And we're essentially looking to use the property in its current form with the least amount of improvements possible, primarily to maintain that more natural environment that the applicant is seeking to provide to her guest.
The groom's cottage, is that the building that is located directly north of the two new parking spaces, space number 25 and 26. The little small building that's a marked one-story building, 305 square feet. Is that the groom cottage?
Correct. That's the groom shack.
Cottage is a gracious term. It does not have any electricity or plumbing in it.
Appropriate for.
The cottage is the one that says, you said 1.5-story dwelling, 968 square feet, 2 bedrooms. That's what you're talking about?
That's the, I
The
believe that's
bridal.
the bridal cottage. And then the other smaller structure, that's just one story, is the groom shed.
That's the building towards the middle of the property.
Okay, because that wasn't in the introduction. Okay, and what's in the 1-story garage, 650 square feet?
So the one-story garage is the one towards the southerly property line. That's just a garage.
What's stored in it? I mean, is it residential stuff connected to the single-family home, or is it? And how about the shed that's over the property line?
The milking shed.
Is that your,
The milking shed?
is that your shed over
Oh.
the property line onto your neighbors, or is that the neighbor's shed over the property line onto your property?
It's our shed. It was the former milking shed adjacent to the barn, and it's just simply used for storage. We put the tables and chairs in it.
I'm not hearing, it's for storage for what?
It's simply for storage tables and chairs.
So that's okay, storage in relation to the business.
Correct.
And we can't tell you exactly when that was built, but it does have an old stone foundation on it.
You know, it's over the property line. I mean, the board's not supposed to be involved with private property stuff, but, I mean, it's one thing for them to declare something a lawfully created pre-existing non-conforming structure to remain, but to remain off their property line? Can that thing be moved, or if you tried to move it, would it
No.
be destroyed?
It has an original cement milking shed foundation. You can see the troughs are still under it.
So, Mr. Drell, I just want to point out, if you look at Exhibit A10, that's a 1956
I
aerial
understand,
photograph.
but-
No, I'm just saying, it's,
Oh, I have no question in my mind that
Yeah.
it's been there for years and years and years.
Yeah. I get it.
It's an encroachment. And I assume, I mean, it's not even an adverse possession type of thing because the neighbor is not complaining about it. Right, adverse possession, you need the neighbor to complain. The neighbors are like, okay, fine, you can have it there.
Yeah, there's also, I believe, an easement that runs on the adjacent property along, you can see there's a gravel drive, which I believe serves the utility line. So there's an easement to I can't remember if it's JCP&L or PSE&G. So there's a PSE&G easement that is there that encompasses that driveway where that shed is over the property line.
John, that is, you'll see that picture after their Schedule A and B, 5A and B. And what I want to remind you is, when we were looking at the solar farm there, that they were going to use that easement as the drive.
Right, I remember,
And-
I was remembering that from somewhere and I couldn't pick, you're right, that's what it was.
And we made them move it up so they didn't have to take down all those trees and everything. I don't remember us talking about the shed then, but I don't, it was there then, and like they said, it's been there for many, many years.
Let's figure out what to do about that. Let's keep on.
I'm going to move on, and so just so you can address some of the planners and engineers' comments. With regard to access to the site and potential for DOT approval, what is your position on that?
We believe the site, since it's going to be used in its current form, the way it essentially has been used, the proposal that the applicants have before the board tonight is going to be less impactful than the restaurant that was currently occupying the site with the retail business that was there. We believe that the existing driveway is adequate and functional, and that we should be able to get a letter of no interest from the DOT. The driveway has existed for a very long time on this property, and we do not see any issues right now with getting DOT to say that this would be fine.
So we will submit for that letter of no no interest.
Yes.
And then can you briefly describe the lighting plan for the site?
So one of the beauties of this property is the more natural environment that we have currently on the site for the type of events that the applicants would like to have. We did submit a lighting plan to the board utilizing modern conventional.
Eric, you got, slow down and go louder.
Thank
Don't
you.
get closer to the mic. Do what I'm doing.
Understood. So we did submit a lighting plan as a part of the application to the board. The lighting plan utilizes the typical modern full cutoff fixtures on the property to light the new parking area. However, this property has a lot of existing lights on site that was used for the previous events on the property. The applicants would like to maintain that type of lighting where it is not as intrusive. We don't typically have the 15-foot or 12-foot high stanchions, the normal black lights, LED lights. We would like to utilize the existing lights that are on the property if the board's professional finds that the lighting on site is adequate, in lieu of installing new, more modern fixtures, which essentially changes the character of what the applicant is looking to do with the property.
So a quick question on sheet 6. This purports to show lighting levels. So what, this is showing lighting levels from what? The existing light fixtures?
No, the lighting levels that are shown on sheet number 6 are based on the calculations for new fixtures if they were installed.
You're gonna have to slow down, Eric. I'm having trouble with you.
Understood, Jackie.
So you said the light levels shown on exhibit 6 are the light levels that would be produced if you installed new fixtures. Is that what you said?
Correct.
So can you give an exhibit of what the light levels are on site from what the existing stuff that you want to, that they want to keep on using?
So I performed an inspection at night when all of the light fixtures were on. And the lighting level, I believe, are satisfactory. The fixtures on the property right now are not compliant with the ordinance. For instance, they're not full cutoff fixtures. Some of the fixtures are mounted higher than what the ordinance would permit.
I mean,
So you're not proposing the lighting that you're showing on your lighting plan? Is that what I'm hearing?
I think he's showing what would be required on the ordinance, but they want an exception from it, but Eric, if they're gonna grant an exception, they gotta know what they're granting it to. They can't grant it to the Eric personal standard of what's enough light at night.
You'll have to provide some sort of
Yeah,
a
you're gonna have to,
plan showing the existing light levels at the site.
you're gonna have to test it. If you want the exception, you have to go test it and give some kind of exhibit so you can compare. I mean, he can go out there at night also. Maybe have the board go out for if they are willing, they can do site visits, but maybe a night site visit so they could see what it's like, but I think you gotta give something. I think that the engineer is concerned that there might be some areas during a wedding when it gets dark, not light enough, someone gets hurt, something like that, so.
I'm certainly open to a more ambient light on the site that's more in character with the property. I don't have any objection to that, provided that at least at the key ingress egress areas and at the key points of access where pedestrians will be walking, we're talking about walking on grass surfaces and things that are not uniform. So if there's enough light based on what's there, maybe slightly supplemented, I think it could be reasonable to grant some relief from the, the letter of the ordinance on the illumination, but I would need to see a calculated
Right,
plan.
if the board were inclined to grant the exception, right, what would the resolution say? Oh, they're accepting it from the current light levels to whatever's out there. They'd have to accept it to XYZ, a plan. I just said to
The
Jeff,
lighting plan here has, what's the fixture that is to be installed?
Correct.
it's shown, he's got a cut on sheet 6 for the fixture that's proposed,
Yes.
that would be installed.
So it could be,
Yeah, but
could we
he said-
agree that we either install that or the board engineer and zoning officer can do
But this
a
is-
light test?
What if 20 years from now, they go to sell the thing? The board's been trying to tighten these things, not keep them, loosey-goosey. I had said to Jeff before, assuming the board's inclined, to grant the application. I said, I think we need some sort of exhibit to attach to the resolution that would track the site plan. Sheet 3. And it would have notes on it. So anyone who wanted to see what the board actually approved as lawfully created pre-existing non-conforming structures entitled to remain, what they are, where they are, and things like that. And so Eric would put together some type of plan for the board experts to look at, and once they agreed on it, that would actually become, we don't do this very often, but it would become an exhibit attached to the resolution. But the lighting would be something similar to that.
Yeah, specific to the lighting, if you can provide a measurement of existing lighting levels.
Yeah.
And demonstrate that you've got adequate light on those sites, I think that could be something to.
Okay.
Well, I just spoke to the applicant and the plan that's there is to put up, it is essentially one light fixture in the property that provides these light levels.
One light fixture is going to produce all those.
No, the plan that was provided, I think, has a total of 8 fixtures, if I'm not mistaken. There's a total of 9 fixtures proposed on the plan.
Yeah, we can just agree to do the plan that's on the paper.
Okay. Does that plan comply or does that plan need exceptions?
No, that plan is compliant.
That makes things a lot easier. Okay.
Okay, any questions on the lighting plan before I move on? Okay, and you heard Anna testified that she anticipates events of about 125 guests. Is the current septic system designed to handle?
I have a question
Oh.
on that. How many employees are gonna work? Because we gotta add that on top of because that was, I don't think it was addressed, so I just wanna know what the total is.
Just come up to the microphone.
It's myself, my husband, a parking attendant, and an assistant to me. So 4 people total.
And the catering.
Caterers.
Right?
The caterer does occasionally have staff. Frequently, it's a buffet. They come, they set, and they leave. They come the following day to pick up their equipment.
So they're in and out, basically.
They're not hanging out, no.
So we're talking about 130.
Say it again.
130 people maximum.
It would still be.
Now, with the 125 guests, you, your husband, a parking attendant, and you said another setup person?
Correct. An assistant, yeah.
And caterers people.
Now, some of the material you provided said 150 guests and then 300
For the
for a
septic.
corporate outdoor event.
So I don't think that that's possible for us to
Okay.
facilitate. We would not scale there. I think the previous owners had set those markers, but we certainly would not scale to 300 ever.
Because if the board approves this, they're gonna have, right now, that it's gonna be limited to 125 guests with everything you're saying. That's why I'm taking notes.
And I just want to put for the record, you're now Five Birds Farm. The farmstead at Ringo's was different. Are you trying to make anything about your online presence to be consistent with what you're telling the board tonight?
Certainly.
Yeah, it's,
That
you
was
may have
very
been
good.
seeing
Thank you.
older marketing materials online that were associated perhaps with the
We-
farmstead. and-
Right, we used their metrics when we came on board. It was a long purchase process, as you might imagine. And we shadowed them all last summer. So we've produced with them, I believe, 6 or 7 weddings last year. So we saw the operations of the property really intimately. We really understood how to do it well and improve it, actually.
I have a question.
Sure.
I don't, John, you said you want to limit it to 125. Their exhibit A7 does have a permit for more. Now, I know that they don't go to 300, but I don't want to limit them.
Well, put it this way, that permit, that's for what is safe from a fire
Okay.
marshal standpoint.
Well, I can
Okay.
have Mr. Rupner talk about the septic system and what that
Yeah,
can
let's
handle.
find out about the septic.
Okay.
Let's find out about how many cars can be parked there, because a lot goes into when you put a number down. You know, the fire marshal might say you can fit 300 people. Fire marshal is not counting cars.
Yep, okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
But what we're saying is, Mr. Rupner will testify about the septic, what that can handle. I think what we're thinking about is maybe 150 is a fair number,
So
because we
let's,
think
why don't we, let's hear.
after we hear about the septic, that may
Yeah.
Okay.
So the septic system, based on plans that we have for the original design that's built, the field is located towards the back of the property. It's the rectangle that's shown. And it's designed for 1,940 gallons of effluent per day. Taking out the dwelling and also removing the cottage, the flow rates generated by those. The remainder, which is approximately 790 gallons per day. Typical events, it's 3 gallons per person per event.
Let's put it this way. Do they bring in porta johns and porta potties for their events, or do they use the existing toilets at the facility?
The existing toilet facilities.
And where are the existing toilets?
So the existing toilets are located towards the back of the bride's suite or the bridal cottage.
Which sheet?
It's the floor plan of, I think, the bridal suite building and the architectural plan, if I remember correctly.
They will be bringing in a porta potty for ADA compliance purposes, but I don't think that should factor into how we consider the septic, because it is just for ADA compliance.
On sheet 7, it shows. So you're saying 2 restrooms for 130 or 150 people?
And they will have a porta potty for ADA compliance purposes on the property
So
as well.
3 restrooms for 150 people, and that's enough?
So I am certainly not an architect. So I unfortunately cannot answer that question. I think it's more a functional issue of the way the site has been operating.
Can you come back up to the mic?
If you may.
Speak slowly.
Slowly and not very close.
Right.
Um,
Loud.
And again, as I said, we shadowed all last year for the most part, and I did not see one instance of even someone waiting.
What was the largest number of people at a wedding last summer?
160 that we saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, John, is there any requirements? I just went through shelter training because of my other voluntary job. And
Yeah.
there, if I remember, was 1 per 20 or 25 people. So I was just wondering.
For
if it was-
example,
Yeah.
on a construction site, there's an OSHA requirement. This is not a construction site. For different things have different ratios. So I don't think there's anything that would apply in the township to what they're doing that requires them to have any ratio.
That said, comfort is obviously incredibly important to us,
Yeah,
and we
it's
would
an
take.
entertainment
and-
business.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah.
so we would ensure, again, not only to be ADA compliant, but also to offer an additional bathroom facility. We're happy to do that at each event.
I did not get that. I could not hear what you were saying.
My background is, I'm also.
But look at that mic.
Sorry. I just was simply saying that we intend to be both ADA compliant by bringing in a porta potty, and also that comfort is absolutely key and foundational to our business.
I think the key is gonna be parking. So you want to, who wants to address parking? You saw Mr. Troutman's memo, correct?
Correct.
So why don't you start it up, Eric? And then Jay's gonna respond to it. So the parking area, this grass parking area, how many vehicles can safely and efficiently be parked on the property?
So right now, within the grass parking area, we're showing 24 parking spaces. However, we do have a lot of gravel on the site that can also be utilized for parking without expanding the actual traffic surface. And as Anna indicated, the parking is not necessarily going to be someone basically pulling in, parking and then leaving. We're going to have individuals directing parking, where to park and how to park, so that we can ensure the site functions in essentially a very orderly manner.
I assume you're gonna have stacked parking?
That is one option that we have looked at, so that if we do have more visitors up to what we're looking, or what Anna anticipates for the larger events, then yes, that's the reason for the attendant.
But why don't we, when you were following them last summer, when you were out there with the 160 people at the wedding, did you notice how many cars were there?
I didn't count them, so I can't speak to that specifically, but I can speak confidently to the flow. If it's managed well, people typically show up within a 1 hour window leading up to a wedding.
So how
and an
many,
event.
because
So if
before
they're,
you said one parking attendant, wouldn't you need more than one parking attendant?
no, because we would never want more than one car driving at the same time in that area. It would,
So where,
it gets targeted.
so where do the cars stack up? Do they stack up on the highway, or you stack them up before they park on the site?
I have yet to see there be a line. It staggers in comfortably. That's my experience on the property. It's not a giant wave of people that come.
Would you be able to provide an exhibit that shows how you get more than 24 cars on the site, how you get, let's say 50 cars? If you had 150 capacity at 3 people per car, you would have 50 cars somewhere on that
So
site.
actually, the ratio for a church for a Sunday morning, that's exactly what it is. It's 3 people per car.
So let me help. If I understood the way the operation is gonna work, you said that not everybody's gonna show up at the same time, like brides, family, and guests.
Right, I mean,
will come
typically
earlier. So
close
can you
family
help us
attendance,
understand
everybody
that?
is already on site. So probably 25% of the people that are coming to the event are close friends and family, or their attendants, and they're there for first look pictures, et cetera, and they're already on site prior to the guest count coming.
And what else? Like, so if you can give us, I know you said that earlier, if there are like snapshots of 25 people, 30 people
Mhm.
coming at different hours,
Mhm.
then maybe we'll understand how the flow is.
Sure, I would say, let's say 120 people are coming. I would say 25% of those people are coming in that first round very early in the morning. Typically, they're there for the entire day. Yeah, so there would be no traffic flow or ingress and egress with that guest count. And then you would have maybe another 10% for vendors that might be coming and going during the day. But again, there's not a significant traffic flow during that time. So the remainder of the traffic would happen usually an hour before the event, and it gets pretty staggered. Frequently, people are late to weddings, unfortunately.
I think it's important to have the plan that shows sort of how the traffic is managed on the site, for really for 2 reasons. Number one, from an operational standpoint, in terms of the anticipated number of vehicles that you could anticipate to see on the site, where they would park, where they would operate, where they would stack if 2 or 3 come in at the same time, waiting for the parking attendant, et cetera. The other thing that I think is important from the parking standpoint here is the plan shows a delineated area within the grass that I heard testimony from Mr. Brunarian that it was historically used for some parking, and that may help the applicant here. But the applicant's information that they provided on the plan shows that they are at 0.24 acres of motor vehicle surface. When you hit 0.25, so for example, if this parking area that's delineated, which is not physically demarked in any way, should grow, they're in violation of the stormwater permit. And the
Is it more
more
than a quarter
than a
acre?
quarter acre of regulated motor vehicle surface. Now, if there's some historical proof of some regulated motor vehicle surface on there, they could get some credit for that, but it would have to be shown to be continuous. If you can't, there has to be some sort of delineated, because these are the types of events where, oh, just scooch 3 cars on the side over here, stick 2 here, stick 3 there. That becomes a DEP problem, because right now the applicant is under the threshold to provide stormwater management measures, being under the quarter acre. If the parking area of regulated motor surface trips that quarter acre, you'd have to do a substantial amount of stormwater management on this site to manage that runoff. And it's because it's motor vehicle surface, it's suspended solids removal, and it's all the water quality issues that you have to conform to. So it's a critical threshold that this be controlled and maintained, but still be functional for the facility.
I'd also like to add the other component of traffic as well, which is that very frequently people are coming via charter bus. So they're all arriving at the same time and not necessarily.
That could happen.
Right.
But
is it stakes and
Is it-
wires and
yeah,
strings in
I-
the grass?
yeah,
Is
I
it something like
understand.
that? Is it?
Yeah, put it this
something-
way. If the applicant wants the maximum number to be 150, the board's traffic expert is suggesting that a 3-to-1 ratio is reasonable. So you'd have to have places to park 50 cars. And the board's traffic expert and the board's engineering expert together are suggesting they want to see a plan where the 50 cars will be parked. And if you do go over the quarter acre, you're going to have to scale back the number of 150.
Yeah, I'd like to add too.
Well, you don't have to. Cost you a fortune if you don't.
Stormwater.
Yeah.
With
The
stormwater.
stormwater would be substantial expense.
Yeah.
I'd like to also reference Mr. Troutman's memo to us, particularly the second page, top paragraph, where he says, the applicant's website advertises the site for weddings, private social events, and corporate events and guest capacities that include 150 people with parking for 65 cars as a wedding package, or outdoor seating for 200 for corporate events. Now you're up to 200 individuals for a corporate event.
Right, but a corporate event, look, you could say, if you're gonna have anything over X number of people, you gotta bust people in. That's one way of getting around that. But for a wedding, I don't know if they'd be willing to accept the condition that, for a regular wedding, if they're over X number of people, they gotta bust them in. But that's something you should put the plan together first, and then you're gonna have to think about what's best for you. Is it best to lower the number down using Jay's 3 people per car ratio to make sure you don't go over 0.25 acres of car service? Or is it better to ask for a condition that if you're over, that you're not going to have more than X number of cars? You're going to show where those cars are going to be parked. You're going to show that that area is less than a quarter acre. And if you have more people than those cars times 3, they got to be bussed in. So those are the sort of things that you need to put together.
And I think I glossed over it in her testimony. We did want to put on the record that this area will be demarcated somehow during events with either stanchions or stakes,
That is
string.
exactly how
There is an intent to do that for each
In
event.
Clinton Township, they didn't have this sort of application, but they had an application where it was for automobiles that were being repossessed. And they needed a staging area. And so the board imposed the condition that they get a surveyor out there, put down concrete monuments, and then stake it. So, there couldn't be any accidental parking in different areas.
Well, yeah, because there's sort of a dual responsibility here. If it's not demarcated and we're not sure that it's under the threshold, we have sort of an enforcement issue, an enforcement problem that we'd have to perpetually monitor. Plus, we'd have to demonstrate to the DEP that we've controlled.
And by the way, that DEP is not just their problem.
it becomes now the town's problem if the town allows it.
With these new regulations.
If the township now allows it to creep into a large area, so I would
Township can
recommend,
get penalized.
I would recommend some sort of demarcation, a permanent demarcation. They could be some sort of, let's say, I'll use an example, if they could be pipes in the ground that are flush during a non-event,
Yeah, I
you can
see.
mow over, then you could stick something in the pipes, but the pipes can't move, they have to be.
Concrete
fixed.
monuments is the way to go.
Concrete, yes,
Concrete monuments.
something to be fixed so that we can be sure that it doesn't creep over. So we, as the township, can demonstrate to the DEP, we've held them to compliance.
And you also have the lighting fixtures will be kind of outlining that area, right?
I think we can put this to bed. It was sort of their intention to put something permanent in the ground to mark the parking. So as, if the board is inclined to approve it.
So, yeah, we would need to see the details on a plan, and we would need to see what you're proposing to do. I like the monument idea, but something to show that we have a defined area.
So let's ask our traffic engineer and the civil engineer, what do you want, what do you want Eric to put on that plan? You want to see where the proposed concrete monument you're going to go. You want to see how many cars can go on there and not bring the automobile surface over a quarter acre. And do you want to see light fixtures around there or lighting in that area, Jay, or what?
Well, the plan depicts lighting fixtures outlining. It's already has the lighting fixture set, so I think that's
Outline in that area.
yeah, one demarcation that's already on the plan.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them.
Yes. And just one operational question. Was it your testimony that the parking attendant takes the cars and puts them in the parking area?
No, not
Okay.
at all.
Okay, so
Would simply-
the
would
parking
simply
area,
walk them to their
the parking attendant, he or she directs, I guess.
And so with the showing as many cars as you can fit, means there is a possibility they would be doubled in and no drive aisles. Therefore, we need a design waiver from the requirement to have drive aisles.
Right, correct.
And what I would suggest also,
That's what they did in Clinton.
what I would also suggest in certain areas, like I think in the main driveway between the garage and the area that's shown as the proposed parking area, the driveway is only 13 feet wide, right? So without putting a requirement on it to be a physical line along the edge of the driveway preventing parking from there, I think a condition could be crafted that would identify, as Mr. Drill indicated, the plan could be an exhibit, and we could identify areas where no parking off the road would be permitted, because it would be very easy along that drive aisle just to tuck some more cars along the side. That would expand the motor vehicle surface. So rather than putting up additional monuments to say, don't park here, I think we could identify areas of no parking. And where you have the open gravel areas where you can fit other cars, I'd be, agreeable to other cars there, but we can't have an expanded footprint and some means to control that.
Okay, so how much time, Eric, do you need to submit this thing? Because you heard before, the other applicant was offered and declined the
June 15th
the June
or
15th
July 6th.
or July 6th. They took July 20 because the stuff that they had to do was going to take more time. July.
Just
6th.
because July 6th, Steve won't be
Right.
here.
And another board, July 6th, you wouldn't have 7 people, you wouldn't have 6 people. So you probably want to do June 15th.
We want the soonest as possible.
Okay, June 15th is as soon as possible, and you can ask the board to waive the 21-day submission rule, just go with the MLUL 10 days. So we're really looking for two plans. One plan is this parking plan. The other plan, even though it might be subject to revision, assuming the board approves the application, it's a plan to be attached to the resolution.
And that is
It's going to be an exhibit. Mark, can you give an explanation? Let me tell you in my words what I would want, and see if you can translate that into engineering.
Okay.
Eric, what I'm looking for, the board approves the application. It says, yeah, we'll grant this D2 expansion of lawfully created pre-existing non-conforming use to allow you to use these additional buildings at one in the resolution from 2016. I want something attached to the resolution to show, okay, these are the buildings we're talking about. This is what you can do in them, like with notes.
Yeah, I think it can be done with like a key map. So you could take
This is good.
an exhibit of the plan, identify each building by letter or some other designation, and these specific buildings could be listed as to what they are. They could be letter designated or color coded in an exhibit to show these are the buildings associated with the commercial activity.
And
And
the
the
parking,
pre-existing
and the
use.
parking thing would also be on that.
The parking could be on there, that could be limited in the areas where no encroachment beyond would be permitted.
That's gonna be 8.5 by 11. Stick on the
Yeah.
back of the
It would be
resolution.
very schematic. I don't think it has to be
Yeah.
an
But,
engineered plan.
so that's the one that I want. The one that these guys want, the big one, so they can see
Yeah.
all the
Is the,
details
is,
shown.
right,
Yeah.
okay. And do you mind if we just continue a little bit in case there are
Yeah,
other
Well,
wants?
what's your,
We're at 10:15.
Oh, okay.
Our usual cutoff is 10, but
yeah.
are you willing to go a few more?
What else do you have left?
You know what? I really just had to discuss the septic, and the rest of it was planner testimony, unless,
You're gonna come back anyway.
yeah, we're
so-
gonna, but I just wanted to make sure that there were no other revisions that the engineer, the planner, or traffic consultant wanted, because I'd like to come back with a complete package rather than piecemealing things and.
I have a couple of minor technical things in my report that I think I heard a couple of items. Mr. Narian said he would address if, when he's amending the plan for the parking, you just pick up a couple of these other little technical issues, I can clean up the letter a lot, you know.
So before we go to that, I do have one more question about traffic, and it's related to traffic flow. Do you think in this plan they should also address how things are gonna flow, especially if they're gonna stack 3 cars and you don't have valet service?
We can add maybe directional traffic flow hours and arrows and indicate the number of cars that could stack up.
In my opinion, this will be very directional flow. So you'll have staggered as was testified, and then you have inbound, inbound, inbound building up to the event. And then when the event lets out, obviously all your outbound. So the way I'm seeing this site is that you have generous intake off the highway, meaning you can get a car fairly deep into the site. So if another one shows up, that's all within the site. Even if you
Correct.
start getting stacking, it's all taking place in the site. And then obviously the reverse, they're already stuck in the site and they're gonna,
Okay, so do you think we need to add any details like that on the site?
I mean, just from, it's apparent to me that I think it works from that standpoint. I don't
Okay,
think
so we
it's a
don't need
highway
any additional.
safety issue.
Okay.
Good, good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, we are still awaiting for confirmation paperwork from the health department. And in the meantime, we can contact DOT
right.
about the access.
And I was gonna ask you, what happens if the DOT does not give a letter of no interest?
We will
What does that
need
mean?
a minor driveway permit because it's under, what is it, threshold, 500 trips?
500 trips.
Yeah.
So
and-
the condition should be a letter of no interest or.
Or a minor, is it a minor driveway permit or minor driveway access? permit?
Minor access permit.
Highway access. Minor access.
Okay.
A minor highway access.
I have requested from DOT if the previous owners had those permits, and obviously DOT has not gotten back to me, even though it's been 3 weeks now.
I would also recommend on the plan with parking and the circulation, we have to recommend running that past the fire marshal as well. There's no issues. In case you're using some areas adjacent to the garage for, let's say, parking your staff or carrying vehicles, fire marshal should take a look to make sure that we don't create any safety concerns.
I have one more suggestion. Since you have the neighbors that are here, and it was indicated that they wanted to speak in favor of the application, rather than make them come back on June 15th, you might want to hear from them right now. So why don't you, if you have neighbors that are in favor of the application, why don't you introduce them to the board and have them give their, so the board can hear from them? You guys have the right to wait till the entire case goes in, if you want, and come back on June 15th and talk, or you can talk.
Whatever is
tonight if
good
you
for you guys. I can come back.
want.
Or I can do it, you know.
Why don't you do it now, if that's okay with you?
I don't want to make you spend another night here.
Well, I live here.
Can you identify yourself for the record?
Hi, my name is Stephen Romanowski. I live at
No.
23 Series
Well, the-
Ridge Road.
Spell your last name. Just spell your last name.
ROMANOWSKI.
And you live where?
23 Urie's Ridge Road in Ringgoes.
Okay, can you raise your right hand? You swear that the comments you're about to make to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, according to Google, I live 0.6 miles away from this property, driving, or about 0.3 miles away as the crow flies. I've been living there since 1998, almost 24 years now. I've never had any circumstance where the flow of traffic ever inconvenienced me from leaving the cul-de-sac area, heading into Coronet Way. And I've also never heard any loud music being played during the summer. That's pretty much it.
You said you live 0.6 miles away?
0.6 miles away driving, 0.3 miles away as the crow flies.
And you're here to speak in favor
In
of the
favor
board
of
granting the
the-
application.
It's been here operating as a venue for as long as I can know, at least 10, 15 years.
Jackie, what'd you say?
I think it just echoed.
Oh, that was,
Oh,
okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that was a technical hiccup. Keep on going.
So my understanding is a few buildings weren't on the original plan, but everything else had been utilized for years as a continuing operating venue. So I'm not sure why all the new requirements, when it's been used for so many years as an operating venue.
Thank you very much.
Mr.
Thank you.
Romanowski. Appreciate it. Jeff,
Yeah, Jim, can you?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kyle.
Can you identify yourself for the
Yeah,
record?
my name is, my first
Closer,
name is,
please.
Closer.
my first name is Michael and last name is Reddy, REDDY.
R-E-D-D-Y. Oh, UDY. You're,
Yeah.
you're the neighbor to the south.
Reddy, yeah, yeah.
Okay. And so what's your address?
33, we are like next neighbor of the event place, that farm. The farm name is Spice Bush Farm. And we live,
Raise your right hand.
yeah,
You swear the comments that you're going to make to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth.
truth, yes, I,
Go ahead.
yeah. So I do farming like most of the like summer seasonal farming up to the fall. So never had any issues with the previous owner also. So we are like very friends, very close friends. And they do have events, not too much noise and no issues from the events. So that's what I want to comment. And I never seen any traffic issues also because I drive that route all the time because to use restroom, I have to run to the home and then farm. It's like 10 minutes. Whenever I need restroom, I go home, use, and relax and go back to the farm. So I do like watch once in a while the events, never had any issues about the traffic.
You're also here to tell the board you're in favor of the board granting this application?
Yeah,
How long have you lived in your property?
4 years. I don't live there, but I live in Carriage Gate, 25 years.
You lived in this property 4 years?
4 years, yeah, I won't, yeah. I do like, we grow organic vegetables.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Reddy.
No, thank you.
Okay, so the time to decide this application doesn't expire until August 19th, so there's no need to get an extension. And the hearing in this matter is going to be continued to June 15th, 2023, 7 PM this room. And Eric, you know what you got to do.
Yes.
No need for further notice. And members of the public are free to come on June 15th to see the grand conclusion, or you can stay home since the board's already heard from you.
And just to clarify, no additional need to notice.
Correct. No need for further notice.
Thank you very much. Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Thank you.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night, Jim. Good night, Jackie.
Night.
Bye, John.
Yes.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.